seconds out from air, and 1 minute and, excuse me, a minute and 15 seconds out from the live stream.
All right, I'm going to start bringing people in, and yeah, I'll kind of do a little intro spiel, but then we'll wait until I'll say we're live when we're ready to start.
Recording in progress.
The live stream has started. 90 seconds to air.
Thank you for joining the Durham Planning Commission virtual hearing on January 9th. We'll be starting in just under a minute. At the moment, your camera and microphone controls are disabled. When the public hearing portions of each case begin, we will enable camera or microphone controls to those who raise their hand throughout the public hearing portions of each case. If you have any questions, we'll try to move along, and you can follow up with any of our comments to the planning department at planning@durhamnc.gov. And we'll communicate plenty of instructions throughout this environment. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll be beginning in about less than a minute.
Chris, I promoted Gary to join and Colin.
You know it's your Founders Day, right? You don't have to like be that obvious now.
I just wanted to start out that way, you know.
We are live.
Good evening. Welcome to the Durham Planning Commission. The members of the Durham Planning Commission are appointed by the City Council and the County Board of Commissioners to make recommendations to the elected officials. We emphasize that the elected officials have the final say on any issue before us tonight. Due to the potential for inclement weather, well, I guess it's probably going on right now wherever you are, this evening, the Durham Planning Commission will meet via Zoom only to conduct this regular business meeting and hold public hearings on the notice cases. In the virtual meeting platform, public participants do not have the ability to talk or be seen on video by default. In order to maintain meeting decorum and a discernible record of the meeting, the chat function has been disabled. You will be given the ability to speak at the appropriate time. If you have pre-registered, your name will be called so you can make comments, just like we were in a public, in-person public hearing. You may also call in during the meeting tonight by dialing 1-301-715-8592. If you call in during the meeting, you will need to wait until the particular public hearing you are interested in starts. After all of the pre-registered speakers have shared their comments, I will ask if there is anyone else that wishes to speak. At that point, you will need to digitally raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone. When recognized, state your name and address before making your comments. Each applicant has a total of 10 minutes for their presentation. Each speaker after the applicant has 2 minutes to speak. Commissioners, we have 5 cases and 1 text amendment before us tonight. Therefore, we're going to limit the commissioner Q&A to 5 minutes. I ask that you be courteous to your fellow commissioners and wait to speak a second time until every one of your commissioners has had a chance to go first. A reminder that in this digital platform, in order to obtain the floor, you raise your hand digitally and you're recognized by the chair. Commission members, please remember you share this time with your fellow commissioners. Keep your comments/questions pithy. And please don't repeat topics that have already been discussed or questioned. The time to make all public statements is before a motion is made. Once a motion is on the floor, and further discussion regarding that motion must come after a second. When the votes start, you do not make any additional comments. You vote your position of yes or no. All motions are stated in the affirmative, so if a motion ties or fails, the recommendation is for denial. Finally, I ask that everyone here on the Zoom, commission members, the staff, the public, to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. If someone fails to act in that manner, it's kind of easy. We just hit the mute button. I'll ask the host to hit the mute button until that person regains personal control. If the decorum fails to be restored, I will recess the meeting until we can regain control and act in a respectful and courteous manner. Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Chair Cameron,
Here.
Vice Chair Shigaris,
Here.
Commissioner Cartwright.
Here.
Commissioner Grace Mans,
Here.
Commissioner Durham,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner McIver,
Here.
Commissioner Cease,
Here.
Commissioner Trapp,
President on this glorious Founder's Day.
Commissioner Valentine requested an excused absence. Commissioner Missouri Williams,
Commissioner Zuri Williams did text me her daughter is in the hospital. And so she's unable to join us.
thanks for letting us know. I'm really sorry to hear that.
I forgot to let you know.
Commissioner Woke
Here.
and Commissioner Young also request an excused absence. We have quorum.
Thank you. We do have one adjustment to the agenda. We are going to move item number 5, which is the text amendment. We're going to move that up before we have the public hearings for the zoning map changes. At this time, now that we have that item that is going to be moved up, we have the approval of the minutes and the consistency statements. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Trapp and seconded by Commissioner Cease to approve the minutes and the consistency statement. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. All right, we're going to move on forward to hear the text amendment, TC 23-006, remainder lot width. May we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Chair, Commission. I'm Bo Dobrinsky, Assistant Director with the Planning Department. I just want to get on record that the notification requirements were met for this item and the others for today. TC 23-00006 is got a short presentation for you. All right, this is a privately initiated text amendment, which proposes to change UDO paragraph 712B to allow minimum lot width of 80 feet in the RS20 zoning district for the remaining standard lot. The intent of this proposal is to provide more flexibility so that more properties may use or may utilize the flag lot standards in the RS20 district. This would just require a modification of a footnote in the housing type standard in 712B. Here's an exhibit. This is actually what's in the UDO currently today, just showing the minimum flag lot frontage standards currently for RS20. As you'll see, the standard lot, once the flag's created, has 100-foot width of frontage. If this text amendment were adopted, the standard lot could go down to 80 feet in width, but all other dimensional requirements would be required to be met. So setbacks and lot area would still be met for both lots. And staff is here for any questions, and I believe the applicant has signed up as well.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from the community that wishes to speak? We have a hand raised. We have Keenan Conder.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, good evening, Chair Cameron, Vice Chair Cameron Shigaris, and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Keenan Conder with Morningstar Law Group here in Durham at 700 West Main Street. First of all, thank you so much, Bo, for your help with the staff presentation today, and of course, all the help you provided in advance of this hearing, crafting the language here for this text amendment with us and working with us on that. So, as I stated earlier, I'm here to speak in favor of the remainder lot width text amendment. Ultimately, this is a proposal that allows for a subtle increase in housing density in some of Durham's suburban neighborhoods by making it easier to create flag lots. In many of Durham's old suburban neighborhoods, properties are zoned RS20, and the lots are exactly 100 feet wide. Yet they have more acreage than what is required for a lot in the RS20 district. They are skinny, they have 100 feet in width, but they are deep, and they have enough square footage for 2 homes, for example. And that is the purpose here, is to create an opportunity to create a second home on lots that have enough space for 2 houses, but do not have the width. This proposal will help make flag lots easier. And I also want to note that this proposal will only apply for the RS20 district. It will not apply to any other zoning district. The reduction only applies to width, and it only applies to width when a flag lot specifically is created. And of course, this change does not affect any other dimensional rules, such as dimensional rules for setbacks, height, or minimum lot size. So again, to reiterate, I think this is a very reasonable proposal to help create subtle increases in housing density within the city's current footprint, and we respectfully ask for your recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I'm sorry, it's currently going crazy outside right here. Oh my God. All right, are there any other community members that would like to speak? Going once, on twice. All right, hearing none, I am going to close the public hearing and now open it up for commissioner discussion and questions. Anyone?
Chairman and Cameron, this is Ed Johnson.
Okay, if you could use I'm sorry, y'all, we need to use the raise the hand function, but go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
So to the speaker or whoever, was there any I assume there was some outreach to the public for any feedback or comments as part of the process to bring this forward, and not seen any. I assume no public comments were received. I'm just trying to clarify that.
Staff has received no comments on this. I don't know if the applicant has themselves.
Are there any other questions from commissioners? Vice Chair Shigaris.
Yes, hi, my question would be for Bo. So it says it's going to affect the RS20, subtle increase in density in existing lots in the city. Is this going to also apply for like obviously future RS20s? To where if someone gets a rezoning change for RS20, they can possibly get like twice as many houses as they currently can on it?
It wouldn't grant them any additional density. It would apply to new areas that are zoned RS20 in the city or county. They would be able to, I guess, theoretically provide additional units with less overall frontage if this were adopted slightly, very, very slightly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? If there are none, are we ready to have a motion to move this case forward? And if so, please make a motion. So moved.
Chair,
Commissioner
as it
Cutright.
relates to case TC 2300006, make a motion that we send this forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cutright and seconded by Commissioner Trapp to move text amendment TC 23/60006 remainder lot width forward with a favorable recommendation to the city. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shigaris,
Looks like she may have dropped.
Oh, I think she dropped. She was having trouble keeping connection earlier. She'll be back.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Grace Mans,
Yes.
Commissioner Durham,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Trapp,
Yes.
Commissioner Woke.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-1.
Next, we will move to the public hearing for our zoning map changes. And first case up, we have Z2300008 Hurley Road. May we have the staff report, please?
Hello, good evening, Chair Cameron, Vice Chair Shigaris, and all planning commissioners. I am pulling up the presentation. Please bear with me. Okay, good evening, Brooke Roper with the City County Planning Department. The following information summarizes the Hurley Road application. Albert Fontenelle, an individual landowner, proposes to change the zoning designation of one parcel of land totaling 1.03 acres and located at 830 Clayton Road. The current zoning is residential suburban 20 and residential rural. The applicant proposes to change this designation to residential suburban multifamily to allow up to 5 dwelling units on the site through a general rezoning. The properties are currently designated established residential on the place type map. The proposed RSM zoning is consistent with the designated place type. The applicant has also requested annexation into the city of Durham. While the applicant's stated intention is to construct 5 single-family homes, the requested zoning district would allow up to 12 multifamily dwelling units since there is no development plan associated with the zoning map change request. The existing zoning is residential suburban 20 and residential rural. The site is surrounded by residential rural, residential suburban 20, and residential suburban 10. The aerial map shows the general location of the project, and the site is within 3 miles of several amenities and services. Here's a map of the property's notice for the neighborhood meeting. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on March 6, 2023, where 9 community members were in attendance. The proposal would allow the development of 5 housing units on a property that currently contains 1 single-family dwelling unit. The site is located very close to Southern High School. However, it is a greater distance from many other amenities and is an area lacking generally pedestrian bicycle infrastructure. The proposal is consistent with the place type map designation of established residential. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Unmuted. Thank you. At this time, the chair is opening the public hearing. Is the applicant ready to come forward with a presentation?
This is Albert Fontenelle. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Albert Fontenelle. My address is 5 Goodyear Circle. I was hoping that Mr. Cliff Cradle was on the call and that I would designate him to actually speak for me. If he's not on, I am prepared to just give a general idea of what I would like to do. Cliff, are you on by chance, sir?
Your name is Pam is unmuted for some reason. Pam Williams needs to be muted. What is his name again, sir? Chris, what is his last name?
Cradle, Cliff Cradle.
Cliff Cradle?
Yes.
I don't
Chair,
see him.
He's not on the Zoom.
Yeah, I don't see him on as a participant.
But basically, there's nothing to add to what was presented. I would like to do some single-family homes because I think Durham is lacking in the homes that's family homes for new families, and also I think that providing those homes for low income to moderate income people would be a benefit to the city. That's the only thing I would like to add, unless there's some questions for me.
We'll have questions for you after the public hearing ends. All right, thank you. You have more time for under to present as well.
Okay,
if you need to contact the person that needed to help you present. All right, we have Pam Williams with her hand raised. Go ahead, Ms. Williams. You just muted yourself.
Hello, I'm sorry, the rain is drowning me out. However, my question is about the buffers on this property. Will it require buffers, and what type of buffers will it require? Does it follow the tree preservation, which I thought, regardless of lot size, they had to provide buffers for tree and
All right, I
That's
think
all.
we're gonna have this issue all night. Okay, you went out a great deal, Pam, but we will, think the question was about buffers, tree save areas. I don't know if, if we can mute, Miss Williams, please. Thank you. Can city answer if they're, what the buffers are for this and what the tree save, the tree preservation requirements are?
Hey, yes, Alexander Cahill, Planning Department. Brooke's going to look up the tree coverage requirement for it while I talk about the buffers. Because it's residential on all adjacent parcels, there would be no buffering requirements as it's residential against residential is a change that came out of the SCAD adoption.
While we're waiting for Brooke to look up the tree preservation requirements, Miss Mimi Kessler has her hand raised, if we can recognize her. We can bring Mimi Kessler in so she can speak. Go ahead, Miss Kessler. Ms. Kessler, if you can unmute yourself and you can go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Good evening. I have a more of a question, kind of a concern. In looking at this on the map, if it's connected to the city, it'll be an island in the middle of an area that is not currently in the city. And I have some concerns about those little islands of city jurisdiction rather than looking at the whole area. Now, I'm not saying that this developer should have to pay for all of the requirement for that street, but as I'm looking at it, the parts of Clayton Road are in the city. Actually, two different parts are in the city, and this property is smack in the middle. And I guess I just don't really understand the planning theory about this, and having these little pieces carved out as city versus county. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know who should address that. Brooke, are you ready to address the free question?
Yes, I wanted to pop in and discuss the buffering requirement for this site. So for RSM to residential rural areas, it would be a 0.6 opacity buffer, and this would also apply to the RS20 as well.
So sorry, there's a little bit of confusion. Brooke, can you look up the tree coverage requirement? And just to clarify, so as of January 1st, the new SCAD provisions, there actually won't be a buffer requirement. So sorry for any confusion, y'all.
No problem.
You want me to address the other Mimi? Okay, so Mimi brought up a great point. There's policy 165 that was adopted in the comprehensive plan, states that staff should recommend against any annexation that creates donut holes or is not contiguous to the primary corporate limits. So when a case goes to city council, we would daylight that policy, say it's not consistent with that policy, recommend denial for a non-contiguous or a donut hole, and then it would be up to the council to determine whether to approve or deny that case.
Alexander, is this just for the annexation, or is this applied to zoning? Are these two different? We're just voting on the rezoning, right? Not the annexation, just so we're clear.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Planning Commission has a resolution on file that says annexations go to council. They don't need to review them. So the council votes on the annexation. You are only voting on the zoning map change.
Okay. Just want to be clear because I know that request was in and I might confuse everyone about exactly what we're voting on. Brooke, are you back?
Yeah, apologies. So the tree coverage requirement for suburban tier would be a minimum of 20% preserved tree coverage.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak from the community? Mr. Fontanelli, you have your mic open. Do you have anything else to say before I close the public hearing?
The only thing I would say is that I think the houses that I'm planning to actually put up there will be a good addition to the city of Durham. It will bring in tax revenue. It will add additional homes that's actually needed. And I think I would stop right there.
All right, thank you. All right, seeing that there are no other hands raised, I am going to close the public hearing at this time. And as a reminder, commissioners, please use the raise your hand function to be recognized. We are now open for commissioner discussion and questions, and Commissioner Trapp.
Yes, my question is for the applicant. Couple of questions. First off, why the RSM designation and why no commitment to single family, even though that is your intention? So you say, or any development plan at all. So just those couple of questions.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay, so the reason when I spoke to a planning department, because I'm one person with limited funds, I was told this is the fastest way to actually get this through the process. The reason I didn't want to commit to that is because, again, it all goes back to my limited amount of funds. If I decided to actually sell the property without developing it, then someone could actually use it to maximize the amount of homes that could actually go in place. And again, I think it all falls back to that. I think not just I, but all the stuff that's coming out is saying that we need more homes, we need more homes, we need more homes. And so if someone could develop it with more homes, as opposed to 5, say the 12, and I decided to go that route, I just did not want to close my options out. And so that's the reason I chose to go that route, based on the information I received from the planning department.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cease.
Thank you. I have some concerns that are related to the question Commissioner Trapp asked. And I think I appreciate the applicant's answer and appreciate your interest in finding ways to allow more housing to be created. And I guess in general, this is not a proposal that I'm necessarily opposed to in terms of 5 single-family homes or 12 multifamily homes necessarily, but I think if it's the latter, there are additional considerations that the community members, the neighbors, and perhaps staff in general, just some technical questions that would arise if the townhome scenario that the applicant that you just described, if that ultimately happened. And so what's put before us is an ask for a rezoning with this description of it being for 5 single-family homes, but it's really an ask for a rezoning to allow for 12 multifamily units. And there's not any information that speaks to potential concerns that would arise out of that proposal. And I, as Mr. Trapp referenced, Commissioner Trapp referenced the development plan route, even if it's just a text only, I'm not suggesting that the commitment would be the way to go. But I do think that more clarity would be needed to really comfortably support this proposal relative to the immediate surroundings. And so I'll just leave my comments there.
Commissioner Johnson.
To the applicant, there were public comment opportunities. What public comments did you receive specifically? I didn't see it in the narrative. So if you could answer that, and then I have one other follow-up question.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Okay, very few people, like I said, attended. Of the people that attended, they were just concerned as to whether or not it would affect their property values. And I explained to them what I was trying to do. And with the first commissioner, well, the second person who spoke, with the zoning that I'm requesting, we would not be able to actually put in townhomes. And if we do decide to go with the 12 homes, that is done with that zoning, then that's basically with the requirement that I see all about town right now. And so I think it all goes back to the fact that the more homes that we have for people in Durham, I think the better off we're going to be.
Yeah. My second question, going back to buffer and also to the recommendation from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee for a 6-foot dedication along Clayton Road, are you prepared to add a buffer, even though it's not required, and add that trail to the requirements?
6-foot buffer from the front of the street going back to the property, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
If it's not a requirement, then I would not be prepared to do it.
And one last question. You mentioned earlier about low income, moderate income housing. Could you clarify what you meant by that in your statement earlier?
Well, I would want to build housing that is within the scope of what's going on with the city of Durham, within the price range of what's happening. I think anything below 400 and below, I think that's what's I'm discussing.
Thank you.
Alexandra, did you have anything? I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, I just, I know we have a lot of new commissioners, so it's probably just a good reminder. So with a general rezoning such as this, applicant actually can't commit to anything. They would be building by right per the UDO requirements and standards at that time. But if they'd like to convert to a textual development plan, we would absolutely encourage and support that if that's the route they choose to go.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Any other questions? All right. Like to call someone to have a motion, make a motion to move this case forward, please.
Chair, as it relates to case Z2300008 Hurley Road, I make a motion that we move this case forward with a favorable recommendation to City Council.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cutright to move case Z2300008 Hurley Road forward with a favorable recommendation. And seconded by Commissioner Cease. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shigaris,
No.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Graves Mans,
Yes.
Commissioner Durham,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
No.
Commissioner Trapp,
No.
Commissioner Wolf,
No.
in true fashion. My calculator is not working tonight, but it looks like it's 4-5. Is that what you have?
I actually had. I mean, it was
5-5. Motion fails 5-5.
Tie. It's a tie. 5-5. Yeah, that's what I have.
All right. All the things tonight, y'all.
So when it's a tie, what happens?
If it's a tie, the motion fails.
Thank you. All righty, moving on to case Z2300015 Olive Branch Reserve North. May we have the staff report, please?
Good evening, Brooke Roper. Just get this set up. So I'll be discussing Olive Branch Reserve North. The following information summarizes the application. Tim Sivers of Cunity proposes to change the zoning designation of 10 parcels of land totaling 87.724 acres and located along Olive Branch Road. The current zoning is residential rural. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 3.700 to allow up to 280 townhouse and duplex units. The properties are currently designated mixed residential neighborhood and recreation and open space on the place type map. The proposed PDR 3.700 zoning is consistent with the designated place type. The existing zoning is residential rural. The site is surrounded by planned development residential and residential rural. The aerial map shows the general location of the project, and the site is within 2.5 to 7 miles distance of amenities and services. The closest shopping center is 2.5 miles away, and the closest major shopping center with a variety of shops, groceries, healthcare is about 3.5 miles away. Here's a map of all the properties noticed for the neighborhood meeting. The applicant has included graphic and text commitments, including a 300-foot wildlife corridor buffer, a one-time contribution of $5,000 to Durham Public Schools, and for 3% of units to be considered income restricted to households earning 80% area median income for a period of at least 10 years. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on March 6, 2023, where 8 community members attended. The proposal would allow the development of up to 280 townhouse and duplex units on property that currently has 3 existing single-family dwelling units. Of those 280 units, 9 would be income restricted to those earning 80% area median income or less for 10 years. The site is in the southeastern Durham County area, which has limited access to services and amenities such as grocery stores, parks, and healthcare. Due to a lack of transit and connections to bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, the site will be auto-dependent until additional infrastructure for non-vehicular modes can be brought to the area. The site is in an area that has significantly higher median income than the remainder of the county. Displacement factors such as evictions and cost burdening are lower than the county average. The proposal is consistent with the place type map designations of mixed residential neighborhood and recreation and open space. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions.
Thank you. So I think, Commissioner Talbot, do you need to excuse yourself for a few minutes to deal with your emergency issue? Do you want to just
If you
go
don't
deal
mind,
with that? Yeah, that's fine.
need a few minutes. Sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry, I got thrown off there. At this time, we're going to open up the public hearing. And if we could call or have the applicant come forward.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm Collier Marsh with Parker Poe at 301 Fayetteville Street. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. And we do have a presentation if we could bring that up.
Give me 30 seconds, sorry.
We have definitely gotten out of the full Zoom practice here. Almost 2 years of COVID.
We'll have it by the end of the meeting, I hope. So this is the Olive Branch Reserve North rezoning and accompanying annexation. Appreciate the staff summary and just do want to hit a couple of high notes. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this is the site and surrounding area, again, for context, about 88 total acres, 10 parcels included in it. And we're in the suburban development tier. And if we could continue on to the next slide. So this is in large part a continuation of a project that was recently approved back in 2020. That was Olive Branch Reserve. And so this is Reserve North, so a sister development. Although I would say that this one has listened to feedback and developments in the city since the last project was approved and has been updated to be more consistent with current goals, including on affordable housing and product mixes. But that prior project had about 350 total units. That was single family and townhomes. That was a PDR 3.2 designation. That instance, that project made a payment for affordable housing rather than dedicate units, which was kind of the practice at that point in time. There's an greenway easement provided. Then within the wildlife corridor, there were restricted uses. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this project is intended to improve on that and also to be sure to comply with the place type map designations you see here. There are two designations that apply: mixed residential neighborhood, that's shown in the, I call it dark orange color. And as staff has pointed out, our rezoning is consistent with that designation as we're providing a mix of residential types that I'll explain in a moment. The green shows the recreation and open space designation. We also comply with that. And as I'll show in a moment, there will be a wildlife corridor along that eastern parcel, 300 feet from stream bank. So a major commitment for substantial preserved area on that eastern core section. Then the southern strip that connects onto Olive Branch Road would be typical preserved flood riparian buffers to meet that open space designation. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the zoning of the site and surrounding area, and this is as staff just presented it. But as I talk here, if we could just move on to the next slide, we did want to update it because there was one rezoning case that wasn't captured on IMAPs, and so that's what this slide is meant to show, that actually if IMAPs was updated with that project that was approved back in 2020, it would show PDR in all of the surrounding area, and that we're really kind of a gap of one of the last properties to fully conform with what's happened in the surrounding area. So filling in what's already the existing development pattern. Next slide, please. Consistent with filling gaps, the annexation is consistent with city policies. We're contiguous with city limits, and we're filling in that noticeable, call it a hole or an enclave there, to make the city limits more continuous throughout this area. Next slide, please. So getting to the critical commitments of this rezoning, as I said, staff has found that we're consistent with the comprehensive plan and the place type map designation, in large part through the text commitments that accompany this rezoning. The project commits to a maximum of 280 townhouse and duplex residential units. So that's in an effort to make sure that we're providing a mix of types within one development. There's a requirement that you have to have at least 20% of each use. So that tells you won't have more than 80% of one, certain to have a true mix of residential types within the development. Another commitment, that minimum of 30% townhouse units have single car garage bays. Again, that is intended to provide a mix of townhome types and specifically a more affordable townhome option amongst all of them. So providing different price points accessible to different families. We have material commitments to ensure there's variation, that units next to each other look different than each other. And then environmental conditions are always important, especially in this part of the county and the expanding city. There's a max of 70% impervious surface coverage. We do have a greenway trail easement where it's called for in the city's plans. And then that 300-foot wildlife corridor, that's 300 feet from stream bank along our eastern side, is a major section of this property that will be preserved for a wildlife corridor. We're committing to ensure that this is not just housing, but also a community through required active open space commitments. And so those are some of the amenities that would be required there. The commitment says we have to have at least 3 of those, from dog parks to a disc golf course. There's a lot of open space that would be included in this project, to play fields, and then typical neighborhood amenities as well. We have a contribution to Durham Public Schools, and the affordability commitment here is 3% of units at 80% AMI for 10 years. And just to address the affordability component, I know that there are varying measures and varying percentages offered here. I think what makes this commitment unique compared to other projects is the type of units that we're offering at that 80% AMI level, which is, we often see that with a multi-story apartment complex, and you can provide units within a large development at an 80% AMI level. Here, you're talking about duplex and townhome units that have yards, have driveways, have garages. So on a per unit basis, each of those commitments is much more material, much more substantial, and deviation from what could otherwise be, I think, obtained for those units. And then there's requirements to have at least some of those units have to have 2 or more bedrooms. A number of transportation improvements. The TIA is pretty extensive with commitments that are required with this project or others if they come in line beforehand. But in pertinent part on the project's Olive Branch Road frontage, we are widening the street to a 3-lane section, 10-foot shared path along that full frontage as well, connecting into that greenway easement. And then there are traffic signals that are triggered by this project as well as others. So it's kind of a race to see which project will develop those. Next slide, please. So keeping in mind, this is a textual development plan. These are illustrative images only. We just wanted to give an idea of how that wildlife corridor operates here. So you see the property boundary in red, and then the wildlife corridor is 300 feet measured from that stream bank. That's meant to be shown with those yellow lines to show the full corridor. And so it's a huge part of the rear of the site, the eastern side of the site that will remain undeveloped. And then other areas where you see a stream approaching to the page left western side, you will have your required buffering there as well, although it's not within the wildlife corridor, it would be undeveloped in open space. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, and as the Planning Commission looks at its role tonight to evaluate the comprehensive plan consistency, staff has found that we're consistent with 20 of the 25 policies just highlighted here. So we do think a high level of consistency. If we can go to the next slide, just summarizing the project's consistency and the questions tonight. We're consistent with the comprehensive plan place type designation. We're compatible with the present zoning and the surrounding areas. You all saw similar zoning has been applied throughout the immediate area, and we're kind of a bit of a donut hole to continue that development pattern. We're improving the balance of uses. This specific mix of residential types is missing in the area, and so it provides greater housing variety, as well as meeting a need for housing and affordable housing in Durham. And finally, there is adequate infrastructure available. So with that, we respectfully request that you vote to recommend approval of this rezoning case. And I'd like to reserve any remaining time to rebut any comments, to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. This time, the chair, lost the Zoom screen, sorry. The chair is opening the public hearing. And we have Amy Swaya, is she on? Pre-registered to speak? Tammy, I see you are here. Are you ready?
I'm here. Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. There's a presentation. Alex, can you get that up for us, please? Okay, I'm not seeing the presentation. Are you seeing it? There we go. Okay, great. If you'll go to the next slide, please, Alex. Great. Okay. I want to talk about some numbers. Once the comprehensive plan was passed, it noted that the Triangle J Council said by 2050, Durham would need 60,000 units. So I asked the planning department, do we know where we're at? No, not really. So I confirmed that the baseline of the year for the growth started in 2020. I went out to Triangle J Council, and between 2020 and 2030, 10-year area, Triangle J Council shows that we're going to have about a 44,000 population growth. Planning department has that per person per unit is about 2.3, which calculates to we need about 19,000 units. Preserveville Durham has been tracking the Southeast Durham, which you have heard, from 2020 and to October 2023. And then I personally went to every city council and tagged up and added up all the other approvals of development that have been done. So from 2020 to October, we're over the exceeded units that Triangle J Council says that we need. With this lovely afternoon, I even looked further to see from October to December how many more units were added for Durham, and it was about 1,600. So we're now up to 28% overage what Triangle J Council says we need in the next 10 years. So next slide, please. Thank you. So with this population growth in Southeast Durham, which has been too fast, too much, we've got fire and EMS issues. If you vote yes for Olive Branch Reserve, you're going to put another 644 men and women, children at risk. Our October 22 audit says that we're not meeting the requirements, and every fire run needs 2 ladder trucks. Station 17 is within 6 miles of this area.
You're at time.
Sorry. That went fast.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you to go back and state your name and your address. We forgot to do that in the beginning. Very quickly.
Sure.
If you could do
Sure. Tammy Sawaya, Baptist Road.
Thank you. Next, we have Pamela Andrews. Is Pamela going to continue with this presentation? Or can we stop share?
Yes,
She will continue.
She'll
Okay.
continue. There'll be 5 of them, I think.
Alex, before I start my time, can you please move it to the next slide? No. Next one, please. Next one. One more. There, that's the one. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Pamela Andrews, 6108 Wake Forest Highway, Durham. As you can see, this is a developmental chart that we have prepared and used many times by Southern Environmental Law Center. This shows tremendous amount of growth in this area. Not just in regards to emergency services are we having big issues, but with environmental impact. None of them had followed the stormwater or tree preservation mass grade amendments because those amendments went in place in October. Will Olive Branch follow these tree preservation amendments and stormwater amendments? It's very critical that they do. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. In this picture, you can see that policy 79 says we're supposed to protect, we'll go back. Protect ecologically sensitive natural areas. Please consider the cumulative impacts in weighing these proposals. These two projects are nearly adjacent to each other, are surrounded on all sides by hundreds of acres of exposed land currently being cleared for other ongoing development. As you can see, a lot of area being destroyed. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Protective land. While the Olive Branch proposal offers a 300-foot corridor and future greenway along Martin Branch, commitments to stay out of the floodplains, which is difficult to build on anyway, should not be considered going above the baseline. Policy 80 and Policy 83 show existing habitat areas and wildlife movement corridors should be left largely undisturbed. Is the proposed wildlife buffer going to be undisturbed? Well, the tributaries to Martin's Branch also have 300-foot buffers undisturbed. Will variances be allowed? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I wanted to show you very quickly this data. The impacted stream of Martin Branch, you can see in red. This is 30 times the state requirement, where the unimpacted stream of Rocky Branch is in the range that you're supposed to be, 50 MTUs. Sorry, this is really hard with a slideshow not being present to flip
I
it.
give you a couple more seconds because I know the slideshow was delayed. Go ahead. Couple more seconds.
So this impacted stream of Martin Branch has been slammed. There is a Southern Environmental lawsuit across the street at Sweetbriar for this very reason, what you're seeing in the slide. This area has been slammed with environmental disaster, and we ask you to say no. No more. We can't take more. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next, we have Marie Farmer. Am I going in the right area order, or am I supposed to? I think I'm supposed to do something else, right? I saw that email. That's on the Jake Freeman is next. Jacob Freeman. Go ahead, Jacob. Oh, saw him and then he was gone.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. If you would advance to the next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please.
There's some type of weird pause with the slides, I'm being told.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is this the
yeah,
one
this
you
is
want?
where I'm starting. Am I good to go?
Yep, start his timer, please.
Okay, so this particular slide is an aerial photo from 6/14/23, as you can see, of Falls Lake, where Lick Creek meets Falls Lake. As you can see, there's a tremendous amount of sedimentation that's flowing into Falls Lake that's being deposited out in the lake, which is a particular concern to me as a resident of Wake County and a conservationist-minded outdoorsman who utilizes the lake for recreation. Next slide, please. And then, again, this is from all the existing development that's already happening on Lick Creek and its tributaries. So this slide's meant to show from an aerial view all the land that has been stripped bare for the high density development next to critically sensitive watershed areas. It's also meant to highlight how Durham is not meeting Policy 86 regarding protecting water sources for adjacent counties. The runoff in a Lick Creek and it's ultimately in a Falls Lake, Wake County's drinking water is unacceptable. Next slide, please. The purpose of this slide is to show how much more restrictive the development requirements are in Wake County versus Durham County. Also notice around Falls Lake how there are only 2 zones for Wake County, building zones, versus Durham, which has numerous types of zoning, which includes pushing the urban growth boundary to the critical watershed for Falls, which Wake County does not do. Next slide, please. And finally, I'm going to talk about costs. These high-density mass-graded developments will have costs to Durham taxpayers in cleaning up the damage to the creeks. On the right of this slide, you can see known costs for creek cleanup. These costs do not include estimates of the unknown costs of cleanup for developments such as the one proposed here from these additional mass-graded developments. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Next, we have Pam Williams. You ready to go?
Good afternoon, everyone. Alex, can you bring up the presentation? It should be transportation and schools. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Pam Williams and my address is on file. I'd like to bring to your attention one thing is the schools. The existing elementary and middle schools are over capacity. 110 is considered over capacity, and thus there is inadequate school capacity out here right now without all the developments going in. I also like to bring to your attention that they're looking at a one-time contribution of $5,000 for 132 students. That's only $38 per student. I'm hoping this is a typo area because this is the lowest I have ever seen, since presenting to the planning department. And I hope that the developer will reconsider that, considering our dire need for schools. The second thing I'd like to bring to your attention is transportation. The vehicles per day have increased on Olive Branch Road 88% in the last 2 years. Olive Branch in 2021 was 2,238. Olive Branch per NCDOT in 2023 was 4,213. That's 88% increase. This does not include the developments that I have listed here, which would be 19,207 additional 12 vehicles per day. These numbers came from TIAs. Olive Branch Reserve North would increase the capacity on Olive Branch by 2,000 for a total of 21,360 vehicles per day on this poor little road that is going to be left lane, right lane, and there is no transportation plans or infrastructure to improve this area in the 2050 Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Thus, it will be just constantly weaving out from left turn lane, a 3-lane section down to virtually nothing. The density out here going forward, as the first slide that we presented today, it needs less density into the infrastructure.
Your time is up. Thank you. Next, we have Rebecca Freeman. Ms. Freeman, if you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Rebecca Freeman. I live on Southview Road in Durham. The first slide, the next slide, please. Extreme topography of this land, such as a 66 drop, will require heavy blasting and massive mass grading to build slab-based foundations. All this leads to heavy erosion. It's shown that when you get to past 21% in impervious area in Triassic soils, there's a severe environmental damage that occurs. Number two is the all tree preservation would only be in the floodplain. Therefore, it's leaving heat islands with housing and dwelling areas with no tree coverage for them in these areas. Mass grading will need to be implemented for this project as well. Slide, please. Slide, please. Blasting, the first 6 items there relates to bullet points, relate to the damages that neighbors are suffering in these areas. The blasting permits are issued by the Durham Fire Department in the city, and there have been numerous damages, as you can see in the photograph, with the wheels and the homes and the sediment in the homes and the floors and the walls. And none of the damages have been recouped by the homeowners. The blasters will not stand behind them. And the last 4 areas are about the focuses on the environmental damages that's going to occur from all the blasting and the changes in the topography and the private wells and those kinds of things. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, back up one. I must have missed this. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I've got my slides. Please advance, please. This next slide relates to the advocacy study that needs to be done on the new amendments that have occurred to see if anything is really helping the erosion and the tree preservation in these projects. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yes, say no to the Olive Branch Reserve because it's not in line with 6 adopted comprehensive plan policies that are listed here. Given the location of this proposal and the broader picture of impacts to Lick Creek watershed, as you can see, there's a massive amount of a creek structure that runs along through the project. Developers should be required to offer more than the bare minimum of environmental protections in a high-value conservation area.
All right, thank you. Your time is up. Next we have Marie Farmer. Marie Farmer, do you wish to speak?
Marie is part of the applicant team, so this is Collier Martin, and I'll continue to speak for the applicant when the time's appropriate.
Okay, so that's Tim Silvers, Mary San Filippo. Go ahead. Please unmute yourself.
We don't have a response.
Excuse me?
We're not getting a response.
Okay. Next we have Jason Vickers.
Also part of the applicant team.
All right. Mimi Kessler.
Good evening again. I think that the speakers that have come before me have done a very good job of articulating the various problems with continuing to develop in this area. And I really think that there should be a moratorium on developing in this area. I don't give the applicant much credit for $5,000 to the schools. It's just insultingly low. And I also don't really give them credit for 3% affordable for 80% AMI and also only for 10 years. So I'm asking you to vote against this because it is not in the interest of the people who surround this property. It is not in the interest of the environment. It is not in the interest of helping with affordable housing. The only way that this would end up being better for affordable housing is because there is not sufficient roadway for all of the cars that are anticipated in projects that have already been approved. So I ask you to vote no because this is too much and too late. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the community that would like to speak? No other community members? Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we now are open up for commissioner discussion and question. Commissioner Cease.
Yeah, thank you for the applicant and members of the public for the comments. A question immediately arises out of all that we heard is the school donation that's proposed. I'm wondering if the applicant could explain or elaborate, I should say, on how that amount was chosen and whether any consideration was given to something more substantial than $5,000.
Sure, this is Collier Marsh again. Appreciate the opportunity to address that. That donation was provided at the start of this case before we had the school impact analysis. So the intent was to make it clear that we are going to make a contribution to address school capacity issues. Now, having reviewed the analysis in the staff report, our team agrees that we need to work with staff to update that condition. And so I think what we can say tonight is that we will make an improved commitment and we'll coordinate with staff on the appropriate amount based on this project.
Thank you. I think that would be a good consideration before you carry it forward to council. It would be helpful to have it tonight too, so that we could incorporate it into our considerations. But I appreciate you acknowledging that it needs to be addressed. A second question, quick question for staff, just to confirm the city's requirements on affordability for affordable housing do require 30-year commitment. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yeah, if they're taking advantage of the density bonus, it's 60% AMI for 30-year tenure.
But the affordable, I'm sorry, the commitment that is put forth tonight is for a 10-year commitment, correct?
Correct.
So I guess what I want to just be clear for everyone is that what's being offered by the applicant, it doesn't really meet the expectations of what's described by policy, what's adopted policy for the city for affordable housing, even though it is a donation to some extent. It's a commitment to provide something small in terms of tenure. It really doesn't meet the expectations with regards to affordable housing. I guess there are a couple of other kind of concerns or just observations, and we've obviously seen a lot of rezoning cases in the time that I've been here on the commission in this area. The narrative seems to be a consistent one of environmental concerns compared against the generally uniform or we'll say minimally diverse proposals for housing. And what we have tonight is a proposal for at least a couple of types of housing, matching, as has been stated by the applicant, the mixed residential place type. And I would just say that what I kind of took from the applicant's presentation, which addressed a lot of the concerns, really leaned heavily into asserting that it was consistent with the comp plan. And I just want to highlight something that is in the mixed residential neighborhood description. That is the place types guide. The place types guide that a lot of people in the public, a lot of members who are currently on this commission and past members of this commission, a lot of people worked really hard around the language in these place types. And I don't want it to be so quickly dismissed that mixed residential neighborhood is more than just two different types of housing across 80 acres. The paragraph that describes what a mixed residential neighborhood is, the second sentence, third sentence, these neighborhoods are designed to add a diversity of housing types at different price points and densities to serve residents with a diversity of needs, ages, incomes, and lifestyles. While the primary use is residential, residents are served by supporting commercial, civic, and institutional places in the immediate area, like schools, community centers, libraries, small-scale grocery stores. And then residents living in mixed residential neighborhoods can easily safely bike, walk, roll within and around to get to those supporting places and transit stops. None of those elements are here. We do have housing. We have a nice contribution in terms of the commitment to the conservation area, but there is nothing else that is really called out quite clearly in the place types guide. That is our comprehensive plan for mixed residential neighborhood. And in that regard, the proposal is really like all the others that are accumulating along Olive Branch Road. They're residential, they're solely residential. And so I think what strikes me is not the policies that are that the proposal is found to be consistent with, but the policies that it's inconsistent with. Nothing on green infrastructure, despite the well-documented kind of environmental impacts of continued development in this area. And nothing with regards to preserving acreage for future development of civic uses or other things that are highlighted in that place types guide. So I just find this proposal really too narrow to fulfill the intent that's expressed in that comprehensive plan document as a mixed residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cease. You must have had your timer on because you stopped right on your 5 minutes there. All right, so next we have Commissioner Right.
Appreciate it, Chair. Thank you to the applicant for submitting this. I think just to elaborate a bit or expound upon what Commissioner Cease has mentioned, we've had these discussions before, specifically as it relates to land use, about sort of sacrifices, and especially in this area where we know environment has been an issue for a long time. My sense is that something that would be proposed that is meaningful to Durham in a way that moves the needle. For example, in affordable housing, you could probably wrap your head around some sacrifice there, right? And everyone has issues that are important to them, and this is the soapbox I typically stand on. But in this case, we end up worse off from an environmental standpoint, and we end up with nominal affordability, and it's for a limited time. And so, for that reason, I can't support this particular case. Again, I'm comfortable with sacrifice, but in this case, we're not getting anything in return. So for that reason, I can't support that.
Thank you. Next, we have Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully people can hear me better. I was told to speak up a little bit. I'm concerned in a couple areas, and I need to understand this better. We're about to address another issue at the next item that also relates to Olive Branch. And to the point of the applicants who made their comments, which I not the applicant, the residents, and I appreciate the applicant in terms of townhomes, duplexes. I don't think we're looking at the impact globally enough in terms of all those issues, because as was presented by the applicant, you started a project, by the way, to the applicant, is the project approved in 2020 completed? Or are there still work in the 2020 notwithstanding this new proposal? To the applicant.
It's not completed at this time.
Okay, so we have an uncompleted 2020, we're adding a new aspect and all these other related things. I have some specific questions that I would like answered. I won't repurpose what we've already, I think, heard from people. I understand that there is a transportation rep in the meeting I understood from the Planning Commission. I'd like to hear from the transportation person, because I'm looking at not only immediate roadways, but auxiliary roadways and the impact, given the fact that most of the retail, healthcare, schools are 3 to 4 to 5 miles away. So what's the scope, impact, and transportation across the board, including auxiliary roadways? If we have the transportation person there.
Hey, Erling Thomas, Transportation. And I hope you're okay. I see that. So this development was required to conduct a traffic study, which does incorporate and account for all the adjacent development within the vicinity of this one. The traffic memo that's included in the packet on the second page, you'll see that full list of the developments that were also accounted for that are not yet constructed. So, and the scope of the traffic study does include immediate adjacent intersections and some that are further away. And mitigation is required when when the level of service drops below a level of service D, and they provide the proper improvements to mitigate traffic impacts of this development, as well as the adjacent developments that have already been approved.
Ms. Thomas, if I could just clarify one thing with you. Adjacent, how far does adjacent go out? 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles?
It varies. And if you look at the scope of this traffic study in particular, it goes all the way up to NC 98 to the north and down to Leesville Road to the south.
Thank you.
And on the first page of that memo, you'll get a sense of from the intersections that were included, what the scope of the project was.
I understand. Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair. I'm good.
Well,
All right, thank you. Next, we have Chair Shakira's, Vice Chair Shakira, sorry.
Yes, hello. My question is going to be for Erling Thomas in reference to your report, or the part of the report on page 27 of 32. There was a table and it had no build. What is the definition of no build? Is that like no build of houses or no build of roads? Because it's no build, no construction, or no road improvements. Because then there was another column, no build with improvement and no build and no improvement, as references the LOSD threshold by City of Durham requirements.
yes, that's a great question. Erling Thomas, Transportation. So the no build includes the existing traffic plus any background development that's already been approved. And those that information can include improvements that they're required to do, but that would be stated in the memo, and then would also make that improvement required of the current development. And then the build traffic is building the proposed development on top of, in addition to the other ones that have already been approved. So you have existing traffic plus some background growth, which is typically 3% across the board, plus the approved developments. And then the build traffic would add in the proposed development.
I noticed I didn't, yeah, that answers my question. I was wishing there was an additional column for like road improvements with no future construction. I noticed that was a missing category.
Right. There aren't a lot of, the only road improvements that would be assumed in the build condition are ones that are funded for construction, either, funded through the DOT or by the city. So if they're not funded, we wouldn't assume that they would be billed in the time frame of the proposed development.
Okay,
We
so
want to make sure that we're.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. One of my main concerns would then be with all the additional traffic in this area and then going down to the loss of service. And I see on some of those tables, it was like up to like 55 seconds per vehicle for every additional vehicle on there that's running through some of these intersections. You could potentially have like, I don't know, a peak traffic, like an hour and a half delay. And how are emergency vehicles gonna come through?
Right. And let me clarify, that delay that you see in the table is total delay at the intersection. So it wouldn't be per vehicle.
Oh, okay, because I thought it was like per vehicle.
Right. So that would be total delay during the peak hour, which are in the mornings from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and in afternoons from 4 to 6 p.m.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, Alexander.
Hey, thank you. I just wanted to attempt to answer the other part of Shigeris's question, or Vice Chair Shigeris. We hear a lot about EMS response and how does public safety get there. And specifically in this area, on December 14th, they responded to an incident the fire department did on Kemp Road. It took them 3 minutes and 41 seconds, total travel time and arrival. And that there were no incidents on Virgil Road in the same 30-day period. So they do actively monitor their response times as new development comes online. We just haven't found a really thoughtful way to be able to portray that in staff reports as of yet, but that's something we're exploring.
Thank you.
Are there any other commissioner comments? All right, the applicant would like to respond to some of the questions. I guess before that, I would just like to say as well, this commission did spend a lot of time discussing large acreages and what we would like to see when you have this much to play with. I'm a developer. I would love to have 80 acres to play with. I'm trying to do something on 7 acres, a lot more than what's happening on these 80 acres, and what truly mixed use development means and how that will create a healthy community for Durham. And to continually for us to have to get up here on these soapboxes and say that is just a little disappointing, because Durham is full of smart people. And I think we should be attracting smart developers to match what we have in this city. So with that, Collier, you can go ahead and address the commission.
Great. Thank you, Chair Cameron. Just a few final remarks, and I'll keep them brief. I appreciate all the commentary from the Planning Commission. They're all some very good points that certainly things we have considered, and I do think that there are some that have been addressed through this project, and just want to make sure a few points are clear. Just hitting the Chair's comments about large areas and areas to play with. I think how we view that with this project is that the way that we acknowledge the size of this site is environmental preservation of that wildlife corridor and open space. It's a major part of this site. And so there are areas that would be otherwise developable that are being left in their natural state. And so that's what we prioritize. So I heard Chair Cutright's comment about environmental sacrifices with this project. And really not getting all that the commission would like to see in return. And I'd respectfully disagree on the environmental sacrifice point, and note the significance of that wildlife corridor. There is extensive open space that would be provided with this. And cutting to the comments that we heard from some of the public, about environmental areas concerns in the area. The stormwater, the erosion control and mass grading amendment was passed to address those concerns, and this project will comply with it. So, hopefully those amendments do make those concerns a thing of the past, and this project would be an example of how that could come to fruition. The last item that we can overlook is that affordable housing. I note that the policy at 30% income restriction is to get a density bonus, but not necessarily a policy that's how all affordable housing commitments should be made. And I think that each commitment is unique. And I do want to highlight the uniqueness of this commitment, which is the product type. These are rental products that are different than most. They're not typical apartments. They're larger with amenities, yards, and features that you otherwise wouldn't get, that all come at an enhanced cost that you're not having to pay that cost. So on a per unit basis, I think these are much more meaningful than most you see. So with that, we again appreciate all the commentary. We'll continue to listen to it. And thank you for your consideration today.
Commissioner Cease, you have about 2 minutes. Go ahead.
I think you mean Commissioner Johnson, is that right?
I mean, Commissioner Johnson, I'm sorry. And I'm looking right at him and you're over here. I don't know what it's rainy outside. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. To clarify the comment about the 300-foot buffer to the applicant, you have 87.7 acres. I'm just trying to define how much of that acre it would be in that 300-foot buffer of the 87 acres.
I don't have a specific amount. I think that the general numbers we're looking at is that around half the site or more will end up having to be preserved in one form or another through our commitments.
Thank you.
Yes, Brooke.
Hi, thank you. Staff just wanted to confirm with the applicant. They mentioned that a proffer to coordinate with internal planning staff to create an updated proffer for or contribution to Durham Public Schools. We were wondering if the applicant would consider committing to an amount this evening. I'm just trying to repeat back what was stated earlier.
Yeah, I think that we have to go and truly crunch the numbers at this point. So I think that it's safe to say we're going to make a meaningful improvement, but I can't give you a number at this point.
Okay, thank you.
The other commissioners have comments? Are we ready to move this forward?
Chair, as it relates to case Z2300015, Olive Branch Reserve North, make a motion that we move this case forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Cutright and seconded by Commissioner Cease to move case Z2300015 Olive Branch Reserve North forward with a favorable recommendation to City Council. May I have the roll call vote?
Chair Cameron,
No.
Vice Chair Shigaris,
No.
Commissioner Cutright,
No.
Commissioner Grace Mance,
No.
Commissioner Durham,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner McIver,
No.
Commissioner Cease,
No.
Commissioner Trapp,
No.
Commissioner Woke.
No.
Motion fails 10-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, you have, wait, what time is it? Oh, 7:06. We have about a few minutes, 7:30, we take our break. So let's see if we can get through some of the discussion on this one. We have case Z2300008 Z2300013 Village Road Assembly. Wait, may we have the staff report?
For Grover Planning, apologies, bear with me as I pull up the presentation. All right, this is case Z2300013 Virgil Road Assemblage. The following information summarizes the application. Mary Farmer of Parker, Poe, Adams, and Bernstein LLP proposes to change the zoning designation of 10 parcels of land totaling 202.38 acres and located at 702 and 1902 Virgil Road, 3522 and 3616 Coley Road, 720, 722, 725, and 750 Kernis Road, and 751 Olive Branch Road. The current zoning is residential rural. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Plan Development Residential 2.886 to allow up to 531 townhouse and single-family residential units. The properties are currently designated mixed residential neighborhood, recreation and open space, and mixed-use neighborhood on the place type map. The proposed PDR 2.886 zoning is consistent with the place type map designation of MRN and recreation and open space. However, it is inconsistent with the mixed-use neighborhood designation. The proposed zoning is approved. Staff recommends a change to the place type map to designate the property as mixed residential neighborhood and recreation and open space. The existing zoning is residential rural. The site is surrounded by residential, rural, and PDR. The aerial map shows the general location of the project. The site is 3 to 5 miles away from most amenities and services, and the area generally lacks transit, pedestrian, and bicycle infrastructure to reach these places. Here's a map of all the properties noticed for the neighborhood meeting. The applicant has included graphic and textual commitments, including 3% of the units to be income restricted to households earning no more than 80% AMI for 20 years, the addition of sediment basin skimmers, and 2 stormwater control measures for the use of only native plants in the buffer and tree save areas, 2 additional site amenities to be provided, such as a dog park, tot lot, disc golf course, pollinator garden, or a pool. And finally, a one-time contribution of $5,000 to Durham Public Schools. The proposal's development plan shown in attachment D meets the minimum 20% or 40.48 acre requirement, tree coverage of 16% or 32.38 acres, and open space, and 70% impervious surface limitation requirements of the UDO. The graphic development plan exceeds UDO requirements in providing an additional 50 feet of buffer for perennial streams and 0.4 opacity buffers when 0.2 buffers are required. The applicant held a meeting on January 18th, 2023, where 29 community members attended. So in summation, the proposal would allow the development of a maximum of 531 townhouse and single-family units on a vacant lot. Again, 3% of the units would be income-restricted units. The site for the proposed units is located in Southeast Durham. The proposal would increase the supply of income-restricted and market-rate housing in Durham and provides additional commitments regarding the construction of stormwater control measures, additional amenities for the site, and the Durham Public Schools contribution. To note, the proposal is inconsistent with the adopted Eastern Durham Open Space Plan. The plan recommends a 300-foot wildlife corridor to be provided on the western portion of the site. The applicant has not committed to providing this buffer at this time. While the proposal is consistent with the place type map designation of MRN and ROS, as it provides a mix of single family and townhouse units and does protect the existing open space area, the proposal was was not found to be consistent with the mixed-use neighborhood designation, as only a mix of residential uses are proposed, and the site is also not within a 15-minute walk of non-residential uses. Thank you. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions.
Thank you. All righty, may we have the applicant come forward for a presentation?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Chair Cameron, members of the commission. My name is Marie Farmer. I'm with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, Raleigh, here on behalf of the applicant, Taylor Morrison. I am accompanied tonight by Laura Holloman, certified planner with McAdams, Tyler Prost, civil engineer and project manager with McAdams, and Duran Capers, traffic engineering project manager with Rainey Kemp, who are all available to answer questions this evening. I would like to briefly start, if we could go to the next slide, please. By introducing the developer of this site. Taylor Morrison is a national home builder that entered the North Carolina market in 2015 and has built communities in Raleigh, Cary, Holly Springs, Apex, Fuquay Varina, and Durham. Life Story Research has awarded Taylor Morrison with the Most Trusted Builder Award for 8 consecutive years. Taylor Morrison has partnered with Ibacos, a nationally recognized expert in construction quality. And in 2019, Taylor Morrison partnered with the National Wildlife Federation to apply NWF standards to current and future community parks and open space. They have taken the Monarch Pledge to support monarch butterfly recovery efforts by providing butterfly gardens, collaborated with NWF to design and build early childhood health outdoors nature playscapes in certain communities, and are committed to planting 100% native trees in their certified open spaces, as well as incorporating more nature trails and other outdoor experiences to encourage sustainable landscape practices. To date, they have certified more than 7,200 acres of wildlife habitat, 72 monarch butterfly gardens, and over 100 nature playscapes are underway. Taylor Morrison is also the only U.S. home builder on Bloomberg's Gender Equality Index since 2019. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, Taylor Morrison has built several communities here in North Carolina, and we wanted to illustrate a few of the examples of the type of projects they have built here to demonstrate the quality that you can expect from this developer. The top left picture is from the Creekside at Bethpage community in Durham. The middle picture is from the Bridgebury community in Holly Springs, and the top right is from the towns at Westford in Apex. As you can see, homes within Taylor Morrison communities vary in appearance with a variety of floor plans and exteriors offered for each product type. Next slide, please. The property is located less than 10 miles north of RDU and a few miles east of Carolina Arbors. It sits between Olive Branch Road and Coley Road along Virgil Road and extends down to Carpenter Pond Road. The property is mostly vacant. Next slide, please. The designation for this site is mostly mixed residential neighborhood. Our proposed project meets the plan for the mixed residential neighborhood designation because it will provide new homes on previously undeveloped land and is designed to add a diversity of housing types at different price points and densities. We are also consistent with the recreation and open space designation based on the tree preservation and buffer areas proposed. Next slide, please. The current zoning on the site is residential rural, and the zoning we are requesting is PDR 2.886, which will allow for the development of up to 531 single-family homes and townhomes. Next slide. This application is also accompanied by an annexation petition, and consistent with policy 165 of the comprehensive plan, this annexation would be contiguous with existing city limits on Carpenter Pond Road. Next slide, please. This application was submitted with a graphic development plan, so you all can see precisely what Taylor Morrison is proposing on this site. As you can see, a little over 40 acres are preserved for tree coverage. There are 32.28 acres of open space that would be provided. There will be 100-foot stream buffers along all of the intermittent and perennial streams, as you can see by the areas highlighted in blue. There would be 20-foot project boundary buffers along the perimeter of the project. There would be 4 access points on Virgil Road and 2 access points on Coley Road. Next slide, please. Based on the traffic impact analysis that was prepared by Ramey Kemp, looking at the year 2031, which used a compounded growth rate of about 2% to determine the background traffic projections, and using the traffic volume projections based on other developments approved in the area, there are a number of traffic improvements required of other developments that are also required of this development, as well as improvements specifically required of this development. These improvements would be required prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, but could be phased at the time of site plan with a traffic phasing analysis approved by City Transportation and NCDOT. As you can see, these improvements include turn lanes on Carpenter Pond and Virgil, Kemp and Virgil, and installation of a traffic signal at 98 and Southview Road. If you have specific questions about any of these improvements, Drawing Papers with Ramey Kemp is available to answer questions. Next slide. There are a number of text commitments being offered with this proposal. A maximum of 531 units, as we had said previously. There's also a mixture of townhouse and single family. The commitment provides for a maximum of 45% single family and a minimum of 50% townhouse to ensure that affordability is key in mind here, that there are at least 50% of the product that would be offered would be the townhouse. There would also be at least 2 different types of townhouse units and single family units. The townhouse units could vary in width of the unit, number of stories, driveway location, or garage capacity, again, to make sure that there are a mix of price points that are provided. And the single family could vary based on lot size or finished square footage. The townhouse buildings will also not exceed 45 feet. We also provided several commitments in terms of erosion control and stormwater. As we know, some of these requirements in the UDO are already included. The skimmers for the sediment basins, that is now, I believe, a requirement of the UDO. This was included before that became an actual requirement, but we have also included a commitment to treat for the 100-year storm and to provide at least 2 stormwater control measures on site. As I had said previously, based on Taylor Morrison's partnership with the National Wildlife Federation, we are also committing to providing only native plants in the buffers and tree replacement areas. We have also committed to providing at least 2 amenity components within our open space. But again, as I had said before, Taylor Morrison does have a partnership with the National Wildlife Federation such that in their open spaces, National Wildlife Federation certified features will be included in almost all of the open space that is mixed throughout the site. We have also included an affordability commitment, 3% income restricted units at 80% AMI for 20 years. As I'd said before, there are numerous transportation commitments, one of which is also the 10-foot shared path along the full frontage of the site. And then we do have the standard placeholder commitment of the 5,000 to the Durham Public Schools that was made when this application was submitted back early last year, and we did not receive the information about the impact to the schools until we received the staff report for tonight's hearing. And so now that we have that information, we will be looking at that commitment and reevaluating based on the analysis that has been provided. Next slide, please. This proposal is consistent with 19 of the 25 applicable policies of the new comprehensive plan, and we are meeting 8 of those policies by exceeding the standards set by the UDO. Next slide. And finally, this rezoning is consistent with UDO 3510. The property is compatible with the zoning and conforming uses of nearby property. The development of at least 2 different types of townhomes and single-family homes will improve the balance of uses in the area and meet demand in Durham, and there is adequate infrastructure available to support the proposed development. So we thank you for your time, and we look forward to answering any questions you may have.
you. Rough timer. All righty, let's see, 7:22. 48, I'm trying to think, should we take a break now and then come back for community comment? The commissioner? Y'all think we should, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's take a break now. Come back at 7:32. All right, and then we'll resume.
Our new Durham Planning dashboard is now live and ready to be used by residents, businesses, and the development community. The dashboard is designed to share what our city-county planning department is doing and the potential impact. You're invited to take some time to explore development trends, the different department work groups, or use the interactive mapping tools to review a project yourself. For each set of activities and information found on the dashboard, the department describes what it is, what it means, and why it's important. You can also use the dashboard to get engaged, ask questions, and share your input. It's important to note that the data is linked to our data reporting system. When the data is updated quarterly, this site will automatically be updated. Check out the new dashboard now at durhamnc.gov/338.
We, the people.
Nosotros, de gente.
我们人民.
Hum sab log. We the people hold these truths.
To be self-evident that all men
And women are created equal.
And shall be afforded
the inalienable right
to fair housing.
The City of Durham and HUD are committed to ensuring that everyone is treated equitably when searching for a place to call home.
Everyone in Durham should be able to find a home they can afford. That's why Forever Home Durham is creating affordable, livable, and inclusive communities for low to middle income residents. From renting to owning, find out how the city is helping more people find homes right here in Durham. Learn more at foreverhomedurham.com.
My name is Dwayne McIntyre, and I'm a dispatcher at the Durham Emergency Communication Center. The best thing about being a dispatcher at the Durham Emergency Communication Center is truly being able to make a difference. Sometimes you don't realize how much of a difference you're making. However, being able to hear feedback from when people call to say thank you, that you may have saved their relatives' lives or was able to calm them down, really makes it worthwhile being a dispatcher. One day I received a call from a man. He was trapped inside of his home. There was a lot of smoke. He was really struggling to be able to see and get out. He was able to tell me where he was inside of his home. I was able to relay that information to the firefighters, and they were able to get him out safely. My job is satisfying because at times I do go home tired, but I don't go home ever feeling like I didn't help anyone that day. There's always someone that's calling in that's in distress, that just may need someone to talk to, or just may need some type of emergency assistance. But every day I go home fulfilled with the knowledge that I've helped someone that day.
There's no place like home. Home.
All right, hopefully our fellow commissioners are back. I'd like to call the public hearing, open the public hearing, I should say. Get my participant list up. Pre-registered, we have Tammy Swaya. Are you ready? Call the meeting back to order officially and like to open the public hearing at this time. We have pre-registered community members registered to speak. I see you are now ready. Please state your name and your address.
Yes, there's a presentation. This is Tammy Sway on Baptist Road.
Okay.
Alex, before we start the time, if Alex, you could get to slide 4, please. And I appreciate you doing this, Alex. Slide, go back 1 slide, please. Slide 4. Great. I'm going to start there. If we're ready, I'll start. All right, Tammy Sueya, I'm against this annexation, and I want to point out that this property goes against policy 119 that ensures new developments within the urban growth boundary are established with a level of service for emergency services. I want to point out that there is no police stations in Southeast Durham. With all these annexations, there's no police station, so it doesn't get to the level of service. And I also want to point out that everything east of Virgil Road is in the future growth area. This annexation shouldn't even be on discussion tonight. Policy 122 mentions that Southeast Durham needs a fire service, but there are no new fire services or stations planned in the capital improvement plan. If you'll go to the next slide, you'll see that there are Durham fire totals for 2023, and Engine 8, which would service this area, had one of the highest, like almost close to the highest, 1,600. And I also want to point out that on Virgil Road goes into Kemp Road, where you have Perry Farms, you have Triple Crown Farms on 98, you have Falls Villas at Baptist Road, where Neal Middle School is. They are being built out, and that's going to bring you 3,000 people. And if you dare to approve Virgil Road, is going to bring another 1,200 people, which with the emergency services, no policeman here is putting several thousands of people in harm's way. I also want to say that their Home Healthy Start Academy is going to be coming in on the 23rd this month to bring the charter school out on Kemp Road, which is going to bring 12 buses and a maximum of 1,200 students. So this area is too busy, it's too fast. We don't need this annexations passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Pam Andrews.
Thank you, Alex. Could you move forward before I start my time? Thank you. Pamela Andrews, again, Wake Forest Highway. Again, these are parcels that were passed. Most of these, almost none of these had to abide by the new stormwater and tree preservation amendments that were written. We're concerned, will Virgil Road Assemblage be required to follow these new amendments? Because the new charter school did not. Come out here tomorrow after these rains and look at our creeks. Please, I beg you to come. They will be filled with red sediment and look like tomato soup. Next slide, please. Thank you. And this one, I want you to notice that the right-hand side has X marks through it because, as was said, the right side is in the future growth area due to the fire services as stated in the new comprehensive plan. This should not be allowed to be even talked about tonight We are suffering through many needs for emergency services in this area. All property east of Virgil Road is in the future growth area. Please consider the cumulative impacts in weighing these proposals. These two projects, which are nearly adjacent to each other, Olive Branch and Virgil, will be affecting hundreds of acres of land. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, protecting the sensitive land. While it is encouraging to see Virgil Road Assemblage including conditions for green stormwater infrastructure and planning for the 100-year storm, any proposal of this size in an area that's already significantly impacted should go far above the baseline in environmental conditions. I just want to say the wildlife corridor is in the floodplain, so it could not be built upon. It is 1,800 linear feet, which is 12 acres. Next slide, please. Lastly, I want to refer back to this again. Martin Branch has been slammed because of development on Olive Branch Road. Rocky Branch, you notice, has not been slammed, and there's a reason for that. This is on the east side of Virgil Road, which no development has impacted yet. You can clearly see the difference in the environmental damage. Notice under Martin Branch, some of those values are 40% higher than they should be. Please don't do this to the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Jake Freeman.
All right, can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. All right, so advance to the next slide, please. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. All right, so you can start my time now. So my comments regarding this development are much similar to the ones that I've made regarding Olive. Please go back one. Back one slide, please. Okay, yeah, I'd like my time restarted, please. So the comments that I'm going to make are largely similar for this development to the ones that I made for the Olive Branch development we spoke about earlier, because the concerns are exactly the same. We've got a development that has potential to have significant impact to Martin Branch, which is already severely impacted, and also to start impacting Rocky Branch. And I know from being out in this area and driving over those creeks, as the pictures have shown, there's a marked difference between what Rocky Branch flow looks like and what what Rocky Branch flow looks like and what Martin Branch flow looks like where it comes into Lick Creek. So again, this is that aerial view of Lick Creek and all the sediment that is being poured into Falls Lake. Next slide, please. Okay, so the purpose of this slide is to really show from the aerial view again all the destruction that's occurring with these mass graded subdivisions. You can see the area in the red is the proposed subdivision. So it's going to only add to the additional stripping of the land, exposing that land to further erosion into those tributaries to Lick Creek and ultimately to Falls Lake. So, I mean, so I'm a Wake County resident, and this is a particular concern to me because of the health of Falls Lake, as I spoke about earlier for the Olive Branch subdivision, and it's also applicable for this one. And this is not meeting the requirements of Policy 86. So, in my opinion, it's not protecting the water for adjacent counties, Wake County in particular. Next slide, please. So in this slide, again, what I want to show is how hard Wake County works to protect its critical water supply, which is Falls Lake, and the way that Durham doesn't have the same protections. So you can see the impervious lot size in the protected watershed is markedly higher for Durham versus Wake. And I recall seeing in the presentation that that's the max impervious surface for this particular development. Additionally, the lot size in Wake County is significantly larger.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Pam Williams.
Good afternoon. My name's Pam Williams. Alex, can you move to the next slide? Whoa. Okay, one more. Sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. It should be the transportation schools. There you go. Thank you very much. Okay,
I feel like we're doing
again,
the cha-cha slide here tonight. Sorry.
I know. Again, I want to bring to your attention that the elementary school and middle schools are over capacity already. This is without all these developments coming into play. They are proposing $5,000 one-time contribution again, which is only $16. I mean, they could have shown $500 per student like we've gotten in the past. And so I want to bring that to your attention. That is unacceptable. The transportation. Now, Leesville Road is less than a mile from Virgil Road. And as you have seen, I told you Olive Branch has increased to 88%. That's without any development being any certification of occupancy on those developments along Olive Branch. So therefore, all that traffic on Olive Branch is going to hit Cooperative Pond along with this Virgil Road. Virgil Road is expecting 4,551 vehicles. They're either going to go to 98, which is about 2 miles away, or either to Leesville Road. This is putting over 30,000, or could put over 30,500 vehicles per day at the intersection of Olive Branch and Cooperative Pond Road. Cooperative Pond Road is only a 9-foot length. I would like to stress that there is not infrastructure in this area for schools, roads, commercial. We don't have a 15-minute walking distance. We don't have a 10-minute walking distance as one of the policies state for a park. They do not plan a public park here. Again, if that land east of Virgil Road is in the future growth area, that means we don't have adequate infrastructure for that. That is what the future growth area stands for. So how can anyone say we have adequate infrastructure here? And with our police, EMS, fire department are all staffed.
Thank you. Your time is up. Last for this group, we have Becky Freeman. And then registered, just so you know, we have Vicky Martin, Amy Bass, and Brian Strickland. If you are here, be ready to speak. Becky Freeman.
I don't think we have Becky Freeman present. If you are here, Becky, please raise your hand.
Or is Donna Standback taking? I see Rebecca Freeman up with her hand raised. Rebecca Freeman has her hand raised. Well, did have her. Yeah, she has her hand raised.
Thank you so very much for unmuting me, letting me unmute. My name is Rebecca Freeman. I live on Southview Road. The topography in the Virgil Road project is much more aggressive than the Olive Branch project. West side of Virgil runs around 144-foot drops. On east side, there's 70-foot drops. This is going to require heavy blasting and major mass grading to put down slab foundations, resulting in massive erosion into 9 streams at 7 crossings. If you'll notice on the map that there's a Martin Branch that flows into Lick Creek, Rocky Branch flows into Lick Creek, and then Lick Creek flows into Falls Lake, as you've seen before. UNRVA reported the impervious surface, and I just looked this up since the last Olive Branch hearing. The UNRVA reported that impervious surface in urban development can be up to 70%, but levels greater than 10% impervious surface can have significant impacts on water quality and aquatic habitat. That's documented in a UNRVA study. And the other thing I want to notice on the map is that as you see, and this has been mentioned before, the Virgil Road bisects this property of this development in half. And of course, on the east side of Virgil Road, that is established to be, by the new comprehensive plan, the future growth area, which the new comprehensive plan says that significant infrastructure is needed before development can happen in this area because there's a lack of infrastructure there. This development will result in heavy erosion and heat islands because all the trees that are saved are going to be in areas around creeks and floodplains, not around the dwellings. Slide, please. Slide, please. Slide, please.
Can we get the next slide for Rebecca?
Thank you. Thank you. The top says the blasting. Neighbors are heavily negatively impacted on blasting to their wells, not only their only water supply, their foundations, floors, walls, and their ceilings. None have received reimbursement for their damage claims, and these people are suffering. They're suffering. Blasting causes erosion, massive grading causes erosion, and there must be a different type of development out here instead of having our creeks run red after any kind of rain event that happens. And the next, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vicki Martin. I see a Vicki Lee Martin at the end of the attendee list. Did she leave? I don't see her name anymore. Next we have Amy Bass. I see Amy Richardson. I don't know if that's Amy Bass or not. If you're one and the same person. Going once, going twice. Moving on to Brian Strickland. I don't see a Brian Strickland in the participant list either. All right, we're moving on to Mimi Kessler.
Good evening again. My inclination is to say ditto to what I said earlier. But I recognize that for each public hearing item, we need to be more articulate than that. So this is a ginormous project. It will affect a huge piece of land. It will affect all of the streams and creeks. It will dump out even more traffic on roads that are not planned to be widened. It does not give really any significant nod to affordable housing or contribution to the schools, which is insultingly small. I don't know where these people have come up with this $5,000, but it's not enough. And I have a lot of concerns about the ability of first responders to be able to get to the people who will, undoubtedly have traffic accidents because there are too many people on the road. And we just need to stop developing in this area for a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Donna Stanback.
Hello, I'm Donna Steinbeck. I live in Durham, North Carolina. I oppose this development because of many issues that's been presented, but the erosion and the pollution impacts and the accumulation of all of these impacts with all the development that is being done in that area. Like Mimi said, we need to pause here. There is also a significant lack of infrastructure. Some of that's been presented, but there's even more. And so I oppose this particular project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Gonna close the public hearing. And well, the applicant has about 48 seconds on their time to choose to address the community, or you can, go ahead and address the community, because then once I close the public hearing, you're just talking to the county, the planning commissioners. If you have anything to say in your 48 seconds left.
Yes, quickly, we will just say that we certainly understand and appreciate the concerns that have been raised tonight by Preserve Rural Durham. The city is growing rapidly. There is a demand for housing. The area is changing. We understand that there is adequate infrastructure in this area to serve the project. We will defer to staff to address those concerns as needed. We will comply with the text amendment on phasing, grading, and tree coverage. We will comply with Durham's stringent erosion control and stormwater regulations, some of the most stringent in the state. We will also comply with the city regulations regarding blasting, and we hope that our presentation showed that Taylor Morrison is a unique developer in terms of their consciousness towards these environmental concerns. And so we will address any further questions that the commission has. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, at this time, I'm closing the public hearing, and we are now open for commissioner discussion. Please use the raise your hand feature to be recognized to speak. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. So to the applicant, the community has raised a number of issues, so I'm going to follow up on a couple of them. One is you're saying you're compliant with the blasting rules. Can you define that a little bit more in terms of what you're going to do in protecting all the issues that were raised by the community, including the groundwater, including housing, current housing?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I was force muted. So in terms of blasting, the regulations in Durham, the city of Durham requires blasting companies. So if blasting is required, a preliminary geotech analysis was done. It still needs to be determined whether blasting will actually occur on site. But if it does occur, Taylor Morrison will hire a blasting company, a third party, to do so in the city of Durham. They are required to be licensed and insured. So we will comply with those requirements. There are also specific requirements in terms of offering pre-blast surveys for any structures within 750 feet of blasting. There's also regulations regarding when the blasting can occur and other types of considerations. And so all of those are things that Taylor Morrison is aware of and will be compliant. Again, in terms of the stormwater and erosion control issues, the text amendment on phasing, grading, and tree coverage that has been mentioned this evening that passed back in October, that was in part a result of some of the concerns that have been raised by Preserve Rural Durham tonight. And the city heard those concerns and they were addressed with the changes that were made to the UDO back in October. And so if this project is approved, when it goes to site plan, Taylor Morrison will be compliant with all of those new standards that address mass grading, phasing, and tree coverage. And so I hope that answers your two questions.
My next question is concerning the statement, as I read in the applicant package. The proposal is not consistent with the adopted Eastern Durham open space plan of 300-foot wildlife corridor on the western portion of the site. Would you address that? Why you're not compliant?
Yes, so our engineers at McAdams have actually been working for months on possible redesigns of the site so that we could provide a wildlife corridor. And we are still working out the specifics, which is why we do not have exact language for a commitment tonight. But we are prepared to start working with staff on language so that we can commit to preserving the entire area north of the power line easement. So if you recall from our slide that showed the graphic development plan, I had shown on that slide, there was that thick green outline that was where the entire power line easement is to the north west of the site. So we plan on working with staff on a commitment to preserve that entire area. This will allow us to cluster the development south of the easement and protect a larger area consistent with the comprehensive plan. The original site design included connection through the easement, and about 25 to 30 homes were going to be built above the easement, but we are foregoing all of those units in order to be able to preserve. Thank you so much, Alexander. So if you see the green bar running across the screen, that's a power line easement. So we are prepared to work with staff on a commitment to preserve everything to the north of that. And that is in addition to everything that you see in blue, the 100-foot stream buffers. It is important to note this would not follow the exact recommendation of the 2007 Eastern Durham Open Space Plan that was referenced, which calls for the 300-foot corridor along Martin Branch Creek, but this would actually provide approximately 20 to 22,000 square feet more preserved area than if we were to just follow the 2007 recommendation. Additionally, we would like to also commit to incorporating, as I mentioned before, Taylor Morrison's partnership with the National Wildlife Federation, incorporating some of those habitat wildlife features into that space as well. And again, we will work with staff on that language.
My last question for the applicant, and then I want to talk to the transportation people. Again, you made a comment about the 5,000 contribution being reevaluated for schools, and the estimated impact is about 1.6 million per the applicant documentation we have. When will, or have you determined what that amount will be, or if not, when do you expect to have that amount?
Yeah, so I think, as had been mentioned before, in past situations, it was sort of standard to provide a sort of $500 per student contribution. That was something that was sort of expected in the past. The city has been providing a sort of new analysis and new numbers than what has been provided previously. And so we are still in the process of evaluating those, and we will certainly be working on that before this case is heard before the city council.
And my last question for the transportation rep, is there any other nuances or information regarding this project that would be different than the previous Olive Branch Reserve North, since they're in the same geographical area? Are there other impacts or consideration both in immediate and auxiliary transportation routes?
Earlene Thomas, Transportation. So the traffic study conducted for this development actually had a larger scope, realizing that traffic was utilizing different routes, depending on their destinations. So it had a much larger scope and included more intersections. It does have some new improvements that other developments did not have. And some of that contributing factor was the addition of additional background development. So this study accounted for 28 developments, whereas the previous one only had to account for 19. And it's just, they build upon each other as the plans are submitted. So I think those are the main differences here.
Just one follow-up. Did you look at them both in concert, given that they're both on the table today?
Yeah, so this traffic study does account for the previous one. The previous one probably did not account for this one because of the timing of the submittals. So we don't make them go back retroactively and keep adding new developments. So they just, as the new ones come in, they build upon and add all the other ones that came before them.
Thank you. And one last question for the planning. Alex, I put it on chat, but is there a map that shows this project versus the previous project and any other projects that were recently developed over the last couple of years, kind of show the full scope of all these projects, given the impact on infrastructure?
I appreciate the question, and it is a tough one. So you're going to get a little bit of a politician answer tonight. I'm sorry. The way development works in North Carolina and specifically Durham is that it is project by project is how they have a right to submit. Whether it's good or bad, whether we agree with it or not, it's what they legally have a right to do. We do look at cumulative impacts from the things that we legally can. However, we legally can't look at the cumulative impacts of things like stormwater. We can only look at site-specific qualifications and impacts. I think Trillian did a good job explaining kind of how transportation can look at cumulative impacts across projects. And then I think the thing that is within our control is water, sewer, and school capacity. And while the school capacity is still, it's still our best guess using a vetted algorithm, it's something that we can, track the impacts at least from a baseline over time. And in terms of water and sewer, those really aren't cumulative because they are sized for specific projects in certain ways. And so there's not a cumulative impact except that lift stations tend to have a certain amount of capacity. As new development comes online, they are take up some of that capacity, and once it's built up, then they have to the applicant has to build another lift station. So I think sometimes cumulative impacts are a little misleading because of the way that we have to handle development in North Carolina.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Any other commissioners like to speak? Commissioner Cease.
Thank you. And Alex, thank you for that answer that you just provided regarding some of the limitations that are placed on how we are able to consider projects given the North Carolina kind of state legal structure and political structure. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate Chair Cameron's comments after the first case regarding kind of the arc, if you will, the arc of conversations that we tend to have over and over regarding projects, particularly in this part of the county, that on large parcels that really offer a lot more of the same. Now, I say that with a qualification that there are some distinct differences. I think this application was, at least the presentation conveys to us, but it is kind of draining to continue to have these conversations over and over about large parcels that are just developed as residential, purely residential. And so, a lot of the comments I made with the first case apply, and they'll be repeated, the ones that are relevant in my written comments for council. I suspect the applicant team, I hope the applicant team heard some of those comments. That one of the distinctions that is striking with regards to this application is number one, it's a larger site, 2.5 times 200 acres compared to the earlier site, but it's also bifurcated, as I believe a member of the public spoke about, by the stream delineations. And so it's a lot more hodgepodge. It also, rather than being surrounded by existing PDR zoning, is surrounded by RR zoning. It really would be a finger into this existing RR zoning, extending further east into the county. And so I think we, as a community, as a commission, and our elected officials as well, I think we really need to be really careful about greenwashing. And that's not to in any way diminish the laudable characteristics that the applicant described with regards to the builder, which of course isn't, unless there was a commitment that was indicated. I don't think there's a direct tie. Yes, to the applicant, but there's not necessarily a direct tie that they're the ones that were required to build it. Maybe they have that commitment. But regardless, when I say greenwashing, what I'm referencing here is this is a large assemblage of land with one use, residential use, two different types, townhouses, single family. I go back to my comments about the mixed residential. Our mixed residential place type does not say exclusively residential. It says primarily residential. There's an expectation that in these areas that are broad brush coverages in the place types map, that other things will be occurring there too. And we're just not seeing that. And the parcels that come in here with 20 acres, those are tougher to make things like that happen. The other uses, civic uses, reserved areas for future commercial uses. But this is 200 acres, and it's really frustrating to kind of have this recurring conversation around large parcels that just add to the auto dependency that precipitates a lot of the problems that we hear members of the public speaking about, whether it's environmental, transportation, or otherwise. And so that's all I'll say, but I'll elaborate, or at least try to articulate those more clearly in the comments for the elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I recognize Commissioner Trapp, just real quick too, I don't get on a soapbox much, as you all know, but it's 202 acres, 531 housing units, 3% affordable, which means it's 16 units at 80% AMI, which does not make a dent in what we need in Durham, especially at that AMI. There's an awesome opportunity missed here to partner with any experienced affordable housing developer that Durham has to offer if you're going to just worry about or concentrate on housing. Does not even talk about the other uses that could go on this site. And then to continually use the excuse of the $5,000 to Durham Public Schools when you're an experienced developer, you should know what the algorithm is and be able to calculate that yourself or get into some type of ballpark and get you a better offer than what's written currently. And then not to be able to give anything a more intelligent answer while we're here on this Zoom. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. So with that, Commissioner Trapp.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. If there are no other comments, I definitely make a motion to move us forward. In the case Z2300013 Virgil Road Assemblage, I recommend that we move the case forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Trapp and seconded by Commissioner Cutright to move case Z2300013 Virgil Road Assemblage Road forward with a favorable recommendation to City Council. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair.
No.
Vice Chair Shigeris.
No.
Commissioner Cutright.
No.
Commissioner Graves-Mans.
No.
Commissioner Durham.
No.
Commissioner Johnson.
No.
Commissioner McIver.
No.
Commissioner Cease.
No.
Commissioner Trapp.
No.
Commissioner Woke.
No.
Motion fails 10-0.
righty, thank you. We are now moving down this agenda and moving on to West Farms. Case Z2300022 Old West Farms, Durham, excuse me. May we have the staff report?
Okay. Hello again, Brooke Roper, City County Planning Department. This is Z2300022 Old West Farms, Durham. The following information summarizes the application. Brian and Melissa O'Hara of Carolina Grove proposed to change the zoning designation of 3 parcels totaling 0.61 acres and located at 903 Alabama Avenue and 809 and 805 Trent Drive. The current zoning is residential urban 5-2 and commercial general. The applicant proposes to change this designation to commercial general with the textual development plan to prohibit the following uses: drive-through facilities, convenience stores, gasoline sales, payday lenders, commercial dorms, pawn shops, rail and bus terminals, cemeteries, mausoleums, columbaria, memorial gardens, shelters, food banks or kitchens, electronic gaming, indoor firing ranges, adult stores, self-serve storage, vehicle sales, or service. The properties are currently designated transit opportunity area and established residential on the place type map. The proposed CGD zoning is consistent with the TOA place type, but inconsistent with the designated place type of established residential. If the proposed zoning is approved, staff recommends a change to the place type map to designate the property as neighborhood services. The existing zoning, again, is residential urban 5-2 and commercial general. The site is surrounded by RU 5-2, commercial general, and compact design. The aerial map shows the general location of the project. The site is within a 1-mile walking distance of several amenities and services. Here's a map of all the properties noticed for the neighborhood meeting. The applicant has included currently 7 textual commitments, including the prohibition of uses as mentioned previously, no signage beyond directional on Alabama Avenue's frontage, a service entrance only designation for the existing entrance on Alabama Avenue, for 60% of the total number of required plantings to be native species, the allowance of paid parking on site, and finally screened trash containers. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on May 22nd, 2023, where 29 members were present. The proposed site is in the Old West Neighborhood Protection Overlay and contains a historic building, the West Durham Pentecostal Holiness Church, as identified by the State Historic Preservation Office. While the proposal would allow the conversion of the existing place of worship into an event space, the proposed textual development plan does not commit to that use, conversion, or preservation of the historic structure. The site is located northwest of downtown Durham and is also located within 1 mile of a variety of uses and resources for residents. The properties are currently designated TOA and ER on the place type map. The proposed zoning is consistent with the TOA place type, but inconsistent with the designated place type of ER, and staff recommend a change to the place type map designation to neighborhood services, as this designation is more in line with the proposal. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now, at this time, the chair is opening the public hearing. May we have the applicant come forward? Is it Keenan that's going to present?
Yes, this is Keenan Condor again from Morningstar Law Group, 700 West Main Street. And thank you all for sticking around to hear our discussion. Thank you so much, Brooke, and thank you, Alexander, for your work throughout this process. It's really appreciated. Your patience as always. Again, really appreciate it. I'm representing the applicants for this rezoning, who are Brian and Melissa O'Hara of Carolina Groves. Carolina Groves is an existing wedding venue in Orange County, and they're now seeking to expand to Durham and open up a second location here at 903 Alabama Avenue at the location of the former West Durham Pentecostal Holiness Church. This site is, although quaint, it is quite antiquated. The site is has been on the market for over a year, and I think that's very suggestive of the state of the building currently. It was on the market for over a year before the O'Hara stepped in and decided to move forward with a redevelopment of the facility. Their plan is to repurpose this existing structure into a new wedding venue by rehabilitating the building, but attempting to preserve its inherent charm. They are also exploring the possibility of including a wine bar or some other accessory use that will allow the O'Haras to activate the site throughout the week, throughout the times that people don't typically have weddings. We expect that this rehabilitation will increase the amount of natural vegetation and reduce the amount of impervious surface on the property as the property is brought into greater compliance with the UDO. Additionally, this is something that's very important to the O'Haras, as they believe this will increase the curb appeal of the property and make it a more attractive wedding venue for their business. As you've seen in the staff report from the aerial, currently the property fronting Hillsborough Road is almost a sea of asphalt. And so there's a hope that some of that asphalt will be torn up and replaced with natural vegetation. Now, throughout this process, the O'Haras have gone above and beyond the requirement to engage with residents, neighbors, and local business operators. In addition to the neighborhood meeting, they've met several times with these folks, including hosting them at their current location in Orange County. Generally, we've seen that the neighbors have been overall supportive of this project's aims, as they like the idea of keeping the building and reactivating the space. But we've been in conversations to try to address some of their reasonable concerns and add conditions that are mutually beneficial to both the O'Haras and the adjacent residents. In line with that, we would be offering a new condition today as a result of conversations with the residents. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read that new condition word for word into the record. So the existing West Durham Pentecostal Holiness Church structure, identified as DH3981 by the Historic Preservation Office, located at 901 and 903 Alabama Avenue, reads 104015 and 014016, shall not be demolished for a period of 5 years, beginning on the date this zoning map change is approved. And what that means is that it gives the O'Haras a good faith amount of time to make their business work at this dilapidated site, which is very important, as the neighbors really would like to see the external structure preserved as much as possible. But that doesn't prohibit the O'Haras from renovating the interior. So the O'Haras are here, and I think they would love to talk to you in a moment about their discussions with the neighbors. But we respectfully ask for your recommendation of approval, and we would really appreciate a vote today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Continuing with the applicant time, we do have Brian O'Hara that has his hand raised.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, this is Brian O'Hara speaking. I'm sitting next to my wife, Melissa, here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. As Keenan mentioned, we're the owners and operators of the Carolina Grove wedding venue in Hillsborough. We're very proud of what we've done there, and we're looking forward to expanding that business to Durham, and also revitalizing this beautiful old building. We really would hope that you are able to take a vote on this proposal tonight. As Keenan mentioned, we have really tried to work closely with our neighbors to find some win-win solutions here. Just as a couple of details on that, we went under contract on the property at the beginning of April. And by April 12th, we had our first sort of introductory meeting with representatives from the Old West Durham Neighborhood Association. That kicked off some internal conversations with those folks. We had the official neighborhood meeting in May. by August, we were really kind of digging in deep with a relatively smaller group of folks that were particularly interested, hosted them at our property, and I think you'll hear from some of them later today. And as recently as last week, we had another in-person meeting to sort of go through the rest of our concerns that we had from the neighbors and sort of talk through how we could reach some win-wins. Over the course of that time, I went back and looked. I think we've exchanged over 50 emails and had probably a couple of dozen phone calls. So we've actually really enjoyed building the relationship with our neighbors that we're going to be working around and are going to continue to be our neighbors. I'll let them speak for themselves, but it's really been an enjoyable experience for us to find some win-win solutions. Almost all of the conditions that Brooke read in the beginning are a result of our direct conversations with neighbors and addressing concerns. I want to go on record also as saying there are four additional conditions that we intend to include. We have agreed upon those with our neighbors. They relate to future building height on a couple of the lots, outdoor amplified music, hours for public food and alcohol sales, and outdoor lighting. And I just want to make it clear, we do intend to honor the agreement that we have with our neighbors and include those conditions prior to the city council meeting, even though we weren't able to get them on the official agenda here today. So I'll just wrap up by saying, again, we really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight and really would appreciate if you're able to take a vote on this proposal tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna let everyone know who is an attendee here, so you can get ready to speak. That would be great. First, we have David Bradway, then we have Pastor Greg Long, then we have Dan Welch, then we have Lauren Page, Kathy Ship, and Tom Clark. So if we could bring David Bradway in and unmute yourself and begin talking, sir, please.
Hello, can you hear me yet?
Yes.
Hi, my name is David Bradway and I live on Rose Hill Avenue, about 2 blocks from the site. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Planning Commission, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak in support of Old West Farms and ask that to do whatever you can to help minimize any negative impacts of traffic safety and other concerns in the surrounding neighborhood. I want to acknowledge all the work that you do on this commission. Even just this meeting tonight has been a marathon and you are all endurance athletes serving the city. Second, I'm not affiliated with the applicant or invested in the project or in any way. I'm just a neighbor who lives and walks and bikes and drives through the neighborhood. I do want to acknowledge the robust community engagement the applicant completed. I participated in one of those early Zoom meetings and meetings with some of the Old West Durham neighbors. I wasn't involved in the site visit or other things more recently. So as it's presented, I support this rezoning, but I'm a bit concerned that the wedding venue will increase car traffic to the neighborhood, through the neighborhood, and will increase the number of people behind the wheel driving in our neighborhood late at night after celebratory drinks, the wine bar situation. There's a lot of neighbors that walk through the neighborhood. They have kids going to Loco Pops, Coco Cinnamon, Opal Park, unaccompanied. There is a lack of good infrastructure on Oakland, and NC 70 is running there along Hillsborough. So there's opportunities for you to work with the city. I know this isn't your job, but I'd like the comments that you provide to city council to urge them to do traffic safety calming and improved pedestrian infrastructure. So I know that's not your charge, but I'm hoping that you can relay that to city transportation staff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Pastor Greg Long. Bring Pastor Greg Long in and unmute him. His hand is raised. You can see him on the attendee list. Go ahead, sir. Unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening. Hey, this is Pastor Greg Long. I am the current senior pastor of the West Durham Pentecostal Holiness Church. And just wanted to come on and first of all, thank the staff of the committee, planning committee, and also you as the commissioners for your valued service to Durham. Don't get very many opportunities to share that with you. But I wanted to express that we are, as a congregation, so excited about the possibilities of our church becoming a continued service to the community. West Durham Church has served the West Durham community since 1911. It was very, very useful during the wartime. Our church served as a resource to families, mothers and children whose husbands were away at the various wars over the period of time. And as many things change, communities change, and situations change, and to know that the church will continue to be served in the community for families of something such as wonderful as wedding, united in wedding. So we're excited about the continuation of that building being used as a service to Durham. And so we encourage you to support this, and we thank you again for all your consideration. God bless.
Thank you. Next, we have Dan Welch. His hand is raised. We could bring him in and let him unmute. Go ahead, Mr. Welch.
Yes, can you hear me tonight?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. My name is Dan Welch, and I live at 923 Alabama Avenue. I'm just a few houses up the street from the property under discussion. My wife and I have owned our home here since 1999. And I'm here tonight to indicate our conditional support for this rezoning proposal, not only for myself and for my wife, but also from a working group of neighbors that Brian just spoke about. And we have been negotiating, as he said, with the prospective owners, the O'Haras, since last summer. So I want to start out by talking about the working group a little bit. This is our neighborhood working group specifically for this issue. We formed the group last June when we first learned about the plan to transform the church into a wedding venue. We announced the formation of this group on the neighborhood listserv, and we invited the entire neighborhood to participate, and we took all comers. And so we feel this is a pretty representative cross-section of the most interested neighbors here in our neighborhood. Notably, this core working group includes Tom Clark and Kathy Shipp. I think one or both of them are going to speak here shortly. They're the neighbors immediately adjacent to the subject property. And this core group also includes Michael Parker, who lives directly across the street from the church. So these are the people who will be most directly affected by this rezoning. And they've been fully on board with this effort, this negotiation. And so we're pretty excited to have a group that we feel is cross-sectionally representative and also the most affected. The working group started with a number of Zoom meetings to listen and take input from neighbors. And after several meetings, it was time to take our concerns, questions, and requests and go meet with the O'Haras. And as you heard, we did that back in August at their place in Hillsborough, in Orange County. And so a core group of 5 of us have taken responsibility for meeting with these prospective property owners several times and negotiating what we would like to see in an enforceable textual development plan. Due to time constraints, that's about all I can say right now. And so you're going to hear more from members of our working group when our next speaker is up.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Lauren Page. You can bring Lauren into the Zoom and unmute her. Go ahead, Ms. Page.
I'm Lauren Page, and I live on 2308 Discern Place, just a couple of blocks from the venue. I am part of the working group discussed earlier, and so I'm continuing on with our presentation. The property under consideration has extra importance to our neighborhood since it is located at a key entrance. It is a transition from the commercial businesses on Hillsborough Road to the residential areas more interior to our neighborhood. Being the entrance point, it sets the tone for our neighborhood and the historic church building landmark. It's an architectural anchor that has been here for 80 years. We would like to see it remain there for many more years. The wedding venue the O'Hara's proposed seems to be one of the best ways to ensure the church structure remains, and we think it would be more neighborhood friendly when compared to many other businesses that could potentially land here. So we like that. But we also understand that allowing this property to be rezoned to CG has risk. It will open it up to all kinds of future businesses that we might be concerned with if this wedding venue business were to fail and the property is resold. Our working group set out to work cooperatively with the O'Hara's on a plan that would allow them to pursue their business objectives, but also provide a number of permanent protections for our neighborhood. Brian O'Hara spoke earlier about some of those conditions. A number of them were agreed to by the O'Hara's and our working group, but as you heard, objections have arisen from the planning staff on how these could be implemented. The next speaker from our working group will address these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kathy Ship. If she is here, bring her in. I don't see her. Oh, I see her. Yes, I see her. Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Ship. You're in the Zoom. Please unmute yourself.
There's no response.
All right, let's move on to the next person, and that is Tom Clark. You're in the Zoom, Mr. Clark. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm Tom Clark, and my partner is Kathy Ship, and we live at 905 Alabama, which is immediately adjacent to the our church. As you've heard, there have been objections to a number of the provisions in the textual development plan that was submitted. Given that we have a track record and a good working relationship with the O'Hara's, we expect to be able to work through these prior to the city council meeting. So we are concerned by these last-minute hiccups, but we expect them to be resolved, and we have made a group decision to conditionally support passage of the rezoning pending that resolution. Our negotiations with the O'Hara's took many months. There was a lot of give and take, but we have reached agreement on a number of key issues that provide protections for our neighborhood. The agreement is not perfect. We didn't get everything we wanted, but the O'Hara's committed to some significant protections for our neighborhood. A key part of our decision is that we don't think we would get those same protections from many other businesses that may land here. Hopefully, we can find a happy ending and get these commitments in a form that works for all parties. We are taking the O'Hara's at their word that they will work with us and the city staff to get these protections included in this rezoning agreement. So we are here tonight to say that we think this rezoning is a positive step forward for our neighborhood. We support it pending approval of some form of the 4 conditions that are currently problematic. However, we expect this to happen, and we look forward to welcoming the O'Hara's and their business to our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John Wood. We can bring him into the Zoom. Go ahead, Mr. Wood.
Am I in?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. My name is John Wood. I live in 2406 Green Street, about a little over a block from the site. I'm also a landscape architect practicing in the area for a number of years. As has been mentioned, the project is located at a very important focal point for the Old West Durham neighborhood and very visible along Hillsborough Road, the main corridor into Durham. Like Cocoa Cinnamon, Loco Pops, and others, this venue could also help to activate this important node for our neighborhood, especially if some of these activities and facilities are open to the public at certain times and as the development team has offered. For this reason and for the others previously mentioned, I'm generally in favor of the project. But because of the site's visibility, I also feel it's important that certain aspects of the site be addressed as part of this process before the rezoning is finally approved. Most importantly is, as Keenan mentioned, the solid mass of unscreened and unlandscaped pavement that occupies the majority of the site right up to the property line along Hillsborough and Trent. This parking lot would not meet current standards of the UDO as has been mentioned. Even though this is an upzoning, it would not be required to come in compliance unless conditions are built into the process. Unfortunately, we have a lot of these parking lots up and down Hillsborough Road that are non-conforming uses that are, quite frankly, kind of eyesores to the neighborhood and to the city. And so I think there's a few mechanisms and a few conditions that could be added to ensure that the parking lot specifically be screened from Hillsborough Road and from the Trent Drive access, and also provide some at least minimal amount of landscaping, canopy trees, and that sort of thing within the parking lot. So we look forward to continuing to work with the development team to work out some of those specific issues.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the community that would like to speak? Would the applicant like to address any of the concerns that the community brought forth? You have about 3 minutes left on your time.
Thank you, and I'll be very brief. Again, we've had a very good relationship with the neighbors of this project. The conditions we would like to add relate to lighting at the site, limiting the building height to below what CG would require, and finding ways to limit the time in which alcohol could be sold, and then those sorts of conditions. So we're going to continue to work with the planning department, see if there's ways that we can include those conditions from the period after planning commission until city council. And I think we feel confident that we can work something out that accommodates all parties. If not, we can create business practices that would reflect these conditions that the O'Haras wish to agree to. Right. Any other comments? None. All right. I'm going to close the public hearing, and we're going to move on to commissioner comment and discussion. Any commissioners have any comments or questions of the applicants? Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I commend the community involvement. I commend the applicants for their engagement and addressing a lot of concerns. Just a few questions for the applicant. If I'm understanding, do you have already an idea of the hours of operation of your business in terms of how late in the evening? I'm just curious.
I think I'll let Brian answer that. I think he's best able to discuss that.
Yes, sir, we do. I actually think my wife Melissa's probably better suited to answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, there's current noise ordinance obviously in place, which we intend to follow for all events. So a 10 p.m. decibel cutoff on Sundays through Thursdays, 11 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays. And then in terms of amplified music, we've agreed to those same cutoffs for any outdoor amplified music. So 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. on weekends.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My other question is, I understand the commitment. Oh, sorry, did somebody want to add something?
Keep going.
Thank you. I understand the commitment on lighting and limiting alcohol and the other things. What about the comment about unscreened pavement and canopy? Have you agreed to that, or is that something you could proffer later? What's the status of that?
I think that's a conversation we're continue to have with that nearby resident who we know and we've been conversing with already. So I don't think we can make a commitment on that specifically today, but as you can tell, we're still working and are going to continue to work with the neighbors to make sure we can accommodate as much as we can.
Fair enough. And did I read this correctly that the estimated traffic increase would be about 1,500 traffic trips? Did I understand that correctly?
This
Applicant
is
or?
Earling Thomas Transportation. That is what is included in the staff report. And I have to base my traffic generation based on the most intensive use that would be allowed under the zoning, since they have not specifically committed to a use for the site.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And my last comment, maybe the applicant knows this, is, or the residents, are there any in the immediate area existing restaurants or existing bars that operate within that area, say a half mile or so? Applicant or residents?
It would just be the applicant.
Yeah, there are coffee shops, Loco Pops, which sells ice cream and popsicles, and then like the gas station that also operates as a restaurant that serves food out of there. I don't know about any bars, but within a couple miles down the street, you get to the 9th Street area with all those restaurants. So I'm not looking for, or what specific area you're looking for, but there is some general food service walking vicinity to the current venue.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioner comment or questions? Commissioner Cease.
Just real quickly, I appreciate all the work that the applicant has been doing with the neighbors and the neighbors' expressions of how extensive those conversations have been, and the faith that's been expressed in the expectations that most of those issues, if not all, will be able to be worked out before council. Just as an aside, I don't think this is too far afield. We do often, we deal with land uses and mix of land uses. And as a parent and as someone who had a very successful wine bar in a neighborhood in a residential context like this and another project out of state, I can tell you that one big attractant to making that potentially successful is to add a small tot lot next to it. A playground structure is a great place to bring parents.
All right, thank you. Any other, any additional, are you still here? Okay. Any additional comment, questions from commissioners? If I'm hearing none, I'd like to have a motion to move this case forward.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion in the case of Z230000220 West Farms, Durham. I recommend that we move this case forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Trapp and seconded by Commissioner Cease to move case Z2300022 Old West Farms, Durham forward with a favorable recommendation to City Council. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Chair Cameron,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shigaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Grace Mans,
Yes.
Commissioner Durham,
Yes.
Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Woke,
Yes.
motion carries 10-0.
I did. Commissioner Johnson votes yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Johnson.
I do too.
Votes yes. I'm just losing it. I'm sorry, y'all.
Well, I was gonna say, I think we need, we're gonna change chairs here. We probably just need a 2-minute recess. I have to depart for a 9 p.m. meeting, believe it or not. And think Commissioner Graves Mans have already left. He is really dealing with a flood at his house right now. So we still have quorum. Alexander, Still
You're
good?
right at quorum, yeah.
Okay.
Y'all can hang out for one more case and make it happen.
All right. Well, I'm going to depart and turn the chair over to Vice Chair Shears for your last case and for adjournment. Thank you all. Okay. I guess we'll move on to Z2300026 Aura Green Hill. And may we have the staff report, please?
Of course. Brooke Roper, City County Planning. There we go. All right, this is Aura Green Hill. The following information summarizes the application. Collier Marsh of Parker Poe proposes to change the zoning designation of 3 parcels of land totaling 12.599 acres and located at 3438, 3454, and 3456 Hillsborough Road. The current zoning is planned development residential 59.102 and industrial light. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 34.923 to allow up to 440 townhouses and multifamily apartments. The current PDR 59.102 zoning was approved by City Council on January 3rd, 2023. 2 additional parcels currently zoned IL have been added to the proposed development, and a new PDR zoning is requested for the larger site. The properties are currently designated Transit Opportunity Area on the place type map. The proposed PDR 34.923 zoning is consistent with the designated place type. The existing zoning is Planned Development Residential 59.102 and Industrial Light. The applicant proposes to change this designation to Planned Development Residential 34.923. The site is surrounded by compact neighborhood, industrial light, RS10, and PDR zoning. The aerial map shows the general location of the project. The site is located within 2 miles of numerous services and amenities. Here's a map of the property's notice for the neighborhood meeting. The applicant has included textual commitments, including the inclusion of elevators and building design, public access easements along North LaSalle Street, income restricted and affordable housing units have been proffered, use of only native species for tree replantings, a bronze, silver, or gold National Green Building Standard certification for all primary buildings, and a post-development impervious surface to not exceed pre-development impervious surface limits. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on June 26, 2023, where 7 community members were in attendance. Again, the proposal would allow the development of up to 440 townhouse and multifamily units, with 39 of those units being income restricted. On a site that currently houses a vacant light industrial building and 2 hotels. The site for the proposed development is located near a major transportation infrastructure, as well as being adjacent to transit service. It is also near several shopping areas, grocery stores, and other amenities. The proposed development is of sufficient density to take advantage of the existing transit service, and it is consistent with policy 170 of the comp plan regarding density and scale. The proposal consists of townhouse and apartment units, 2 housing types that are not predominant in this area of the city. Economic indicators such as median household income and percentage of renters that are cost burdened indicate this area of the city is economically advantaged, providing a diversity of housing stock, particularly an increase in the availability of rental and income restricted housing could potentially help achieve diversity goals of the comp plan as well. There are no significant environmental features on this site. The proposal is consistent with all applicable policies of the place type map designation of transit opportunity area, besides policy 46. The number of units proffered for affordable and income restricted housing do not meet the parameters set forth in policy 46. Staff and the applicant are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay. This time the chair or vice chair is opening the public hearing, and I have the applicant.
Good evening, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission. Again, Collier Marsh with Parker Poe here on behalf of the applicant. I do have a presentation as well, if we could bring that up. And as it's coming up, appreciate y'all sticking out to this point of the night. I hope that this is an easier case for y'all for a number of reasons. One, because there's a component of it that Planning Commission has seen in the past because part of the project was recently rezoned, and two, because I think this is a case that checks any number of boxes and should be pretty exciting to consider tonight. So if we could go to slide number 2. So we're looking at the site and surrounding area for context. As I mentioned, there was a previous rezoning case. It was approved January of 2023, just about a year ago. That was unanimously approved by council and unanimously recommended for approval by this commission. That rezoning related to the easternmost of these 3 parcels. Shortly after that property was rezoned, the opportunity to add the Days Inn and the Motel 6 to the overall development arose. And it was clearly a win-win for any number of reasons that I'll explain to y'all in a moment. But essentially, it allows us to create a better mix of residential uses and better transitions to the single-family neighborhood to the east, while achieving all of the great commitments that existed in the first rezoning case. We've got 3 parcels, about 12.5 acres. We are in the urban development tier. You could go to the next slide, please. So staff mentioned we are looking at a transit opportunity area here where density is supported. The policies that we want to highlight here that are most integral to this updated request are the need within these transit opportunity areas to provide transitions to nearby neighborhoods and to essentially be compatible in scale and design. If we could go to the next slide, please. And so this slide begins to illustrate the story we have as to how this new rezoning takes a great project and makes it better through adding transitions. The PDR designation is that darker purple color. That was the case that was approved back in January of last year. And it had a number of strong commitments, strong affordable housing commitment, and it was the product of a long outreach and numerous meetings with neighbors to the east to come up with conditions very specific to their goals for the neighborhood to make everything compatible. The existing zoning to the west is industrial light. That's the Days Inn and the Motel 6. Frankly, areas that are in need of redevelopment. The purple site there is a we'll call it vacant, but it's been long abandoned industrial site as well. So it's an area in need of redevelopment. And so what we're proposing is to bring that area to the west into the PDR designation. You'll see right away that the density, the PDR number goes from 59.1 to 34.9. So this isn't a situation where we're trying to take a large apartment community and make it twice as big. It's a situation where we're trying to take the existing multifamily proposal, shift it to the west, closer to the highway, and add a different product type in the east, townhome style apartment units that provide much better transitions and really help to address some of the comments we've heard from neighbors throughout the process. Next slide, please. So this slide is the previously approved graphic development plan. So we're rotating 90 degrees here from how we were just looking. North LaSalle Street, which is the street between our site and the single family residential properties, is on the bottom of our screen. As you'll see that the graphic development plan had commitments to have an open space with landscaping on the development side of North LaSalle Street, again, based on discussions with neighbors, and then had a 4-story multifamily community shortly beyond that. So it took a lot of work to have architectural commitments and details to ensure that that project was compatible with the surrounding area. If we could go to the next slide, please. And so in this updated rezoning, we transitioned to a textual development plan that was about the time when that option became available. I think in hindsight, with some of the detail we've added in this textual development plan that really describes the site, and hopefully some good detail for the Planning Commission, perhaps graphics would have helped, but we've got really lengthy, detailed commitments that were worked through with the neighborhood and in-person meetings beyond that neighborhood meeting you heard about, a number of rounds of input to make sure we got these just right. So I just want to summarize these commitments to tell you how this project's improved over time. We're maintaining what I believe is a very substantial affordable housing commitment. So there are 34 affordable housing units proposed with this project. The affordable period is for 30 years. And essentially they're broken into thirds. So 13 of those units must be affordable at or below 60% AMI, then the next third at or below 80, and then the remainder at or below 100% AMI. So a wide range of affordable housing options and price points collectively resulting in roughly around a 9% unit commitment, 39 overall units. Again, a fully developer funded, no extra financing or city support to provide those. So this is not a LIHTC deal or anything like that. This is all done by the developer. That open space that you saw in the graphic development plan, it remains in this project. It has a little more detail and a little more description to ensure that we have a great feature that's accessible to the community to the east. So that is a minimum of 50 feet wide. It will have landscaping, benches, and walking paths that runs the full North LaSalle frontage. So essentially you have, and it'll have a public access easement. So you'll have a publicly accessible open space immediately adjacent to North LaSalle Street across from those single family homes. We also have some light shielding commitments that were specific requests to ensure compatibility. Now this is where the transition part within the transit-oriented development district comes into play. We have a number of commitments to define how we transition uses within this development. So although it's all an apartment community, we have very specific defined uses and product types. So we now require that within 250 feet of North LaSalle Street. So again, we're providing a transition area. The only permitted uses and buildings are these townhouse style apartments. And we've put a number of written conditions there to define what these things look like. Essentially, because they're not separately platted, we had to describe a townhouse through conditions to say that these are oriented perpendicular. They all have their separate entrances, vertical separations only. So envision townhomes, although not separately platted, and these provide a height and use transition between the apartment, typical apartment community. I say typical, but your more traditional apartment community transitioning down to townhouses. Those are only permitted within 250 feet. Then you have your park, then you have your street improvements and the right-of-way dedication, and then you have the single-family neighborhood. So I think really effective transitions that really address neighborhood feedback here. Just checking a couple more boxes based on things that we discussed with neighbors. We have sign commitments that were requested by our adjacent neighbors. Native trees only will be planted. We do have a green building certification with this as well. As staff mentioned, the NGBS standards would be met here. And then we have a requirement that for the post-development impervious surface, it won't exceed those existing conditions that you see today. And last on there is a vinyl siding restriction. Again, based on discussions with those neighbors through numerous meetings, not only in this project, but in the prior iteration. If we could go to the next slide, please. This next slide, as it's coming up, just summarizes the comprehensive plan consistency. I believe, based on my count, it was 18 of 22 policies that apply to this site are consistent. And then to the last slide summarizes our overall consistency with the comprehensive plan, with the transit-oriented development designation. I think that that second check is what's most important here. Again, we took a great project and made it even better by adding use transitions and really creating a better overall mix of providing product types that aren't available in this area. So good mixed residential types, also in close proximity to commercial services. That balance of uses, as I just covered, is improved. So with that, I'd like to reserve, I guess it looks like I've got a minute for any necessary rebuttal. Don't know that it's needed, but certainly to answer questions as they come up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And the community members, if you want to raise your hand, I have Justin Brown and Dot Doyle were registered to talk. We have Dot's raised her hand. We have her on the meeting.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm Dot Doyle. I serve on the board of the Watts Hospital Hillendale Neighborhood Association. I live at 2311 Woodrow Street. As is our policies or the way we work. Is we usually, when we have a development near our neighborhood, we go ahead and form a committee. This committee consisted of 3 board members and 7 or 8 nearby neighbors. We have worked, as has been indicated, very closely with Trinsic and the team there, starting back in the end of 22 when they submitted their first plan. We think that this rezoning request is definitely an improvement over what currently exists on this property. And as has been indicated, is also an improvement over the plan that was approved in January 23. Features that we appreciate, again, I can't believe I'm going to absolutely just agree with everything Collier just said. The increased green space that's nearest the neighborhood, the use of townhome apartments along with Sal as a buffer, and a property that's more in keeping than with the single-family homes that are across the street. The inclusion of affordable housing, and that's been in there ever since we've been working with Trinsic. They have indicated they'll continue to work with us through site plan. So that's, we really appreciate that. And in general, they have been very responsive to our concerns, and we appreciate that. We can see word for word where some of the things that we have requested just show right up on those text commitments. I will say that we have an ongoing concern about traffic on Sprunt. This project, in addition to the project that was recently approved by City Council on the Coke property, brings about 900 new units into this area. And there's only 2 places to go, and that's either Sprunt or LaSalle. And so there will be more traffic, and that is a concern to the neighbors who live nearby. But both Trinsic and Ardent have committed to, if the neighbors can work with the city on doing some traffic mitigation along Sprunt, they will help us out financially. And so we don't have that in writing, but I believe that that's going to happen. And we really appreciate that commitment to appreciate the difficulty and the importance of people being able to take a walk after work, or walk their dog. And the new neighbors will want to do that as well. I would like to end by saying that we would ask the Planning Commission to forward this project with a favorable recommendation to City Council.
Okay, thank you, Dot. I see Justin Brown, but he does not have his hand raised, but Mimi Kessler does. So Mimi?
Hello again.
Hello.
I wanted to say that often I am fairly negative about proposals, and I'm very positive about this one. I'm very pleased with the affordable housing piece, though the gentleman that spoke said that there were going to be 34 affordable housing units, but the what's in the document says 39. And I also wanted to know, I guess I can't really see on the aerial map, I can't really see where the exits are. That would be there. But anyway, I think this is a really good proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do not see Justin Brown. Anybody else have their hand raised? Zoom. There's Justin.
Justin's a member of the team. I can answer those two questions quickly if it helps.
Okay, yeah, if you can address
If I said
Mimi's concern about
Yeah.
the entrances, the
Yeah,
traffic
well,
flow.
one, if I said 34, it's certainly 39 units and want to make sure we're not undercounting those. And then the commitments say that there are 2 access points, both on North LaSalle, which was shown on the prior graphic development plan and illustrated in the text commitments here. We unfortunately don't have direct access out onto Hillsborough, so that was the best option.
Okay, I believe. Anybody else? Nope. All right, we shall close the public hearing and open it for commissioner comments and discussion. Commissioner Cease?
Thank you. Thanks to the applicant. I think it's a great proposition. It's definitely an improvement. And I'm commenting only because, you know, so much of what we tend to express in these meetings are frustrations or not liking something. And I think it's important that when we see something we like, that, and what like is really an inadequate word, something that really meets many of the things that are articulated in the comprehensive plan, we should acknowledge it, and this one does. And most notably, not just the form and the mix, the attention to the neighborhood concerns, the affordable housing commitment, but the green building standards as well. So I applaud the developer and the applicant for the presentation tonight. I would encourage just very careful consideration, and this has probably already happened, but the 250-foot offset from North LaSalle before stepping up in form to the 85-foot height, that's a pretty deep setback, especially given the prior approvals of what was over there. So if that was 150 feet, maybe there could be more units. This is really an ideal location for more units. But that said, that's really pressing the envelope. I just want to kind of confirm, though, that this is the type of project that I think the Planning Commission's work has really been seeking, and we're appreciative of you bringing it forward.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Johnson.
Thanks, Vice Chair. To the applicant, if my math is correct, I mean, the current zoning supported 146 students. There's 23 more, but since there's not really students there now, given the current structure of so we're adding about 169 potential students. And even though the capacity is there with the exception of the high school, are you planning, or would you offer any contribution to do with the impact on schools and the additional students?
Yeah, so client texted me, it's a shame we can't talk in person like we typically do, was listening to the prior hearings and said that, we're hearing what's been said on these prior projects and we're prepared to make a commitment to the school fund. So we want to make sure we check every possible box on this one.
Okay, do you have an amount specifically, or is that to be?
I believe there's a recommendation in the staff report, which is consistent with what we'd be willing to do on this case.
Okay. And the only other question is, I would echo what was said before about the mixed use space. Is the 25 minimum townhomes the ceiling and the floor? The reason that I ask that is, as we build capacity for people, affordable housing, I want to promote housing as well as apartments. So they build equity, they build whatever. And I appreciate the mixed use. It's more of a question about supporting overall home ownership. So I want to know about the 25 minimum. Is that going to potentially grow, or is that set based on the current plan?
So that is a minimum to show the housing diversity. It's likely more. If you recall, we had a 390 commit or rezoning in the last case. The only difference is the addition is shifting that building over and adding in townhome units. So that additional 50 units is entitled to capture these. Now, to be clear, these are intended to be townhome style apartments. They're not separately platted. They are part of the overall community. So it's a little different than what you're envisioning, but I think still a needed product type here.
Oh, so for my ignorance, just to clarify, these are not going to be owned by the resident. They're still going to be apartment type townhomes.
They're a part of the overall community here, correct?
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Any other commissioner questions? Oh, all good. May I have a motion to move this case forward?
Madam Vice Chair, if there are no other, I'm sorry, I think Brooke's going to say something. No.
Apologies. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm the proffer about Durham Public Schools with the applicant and ensure that we're on the same page with the contribution amount.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the correspondence here. I think the number was 123,602.
Yes, that's the number provided in the staff report.
Yep, that's the number.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Madam Vice Chair, if there are no further questions, I'm going to attempt to make this motion. So Brooke and Alexander, keep me straight. I'm going to try to get this all in one motion. And the case Z2300026, Aurora Green Hill, I recommend that we move this case forward to City Council with a favorable recommendation with the updated project and textual development plan, and also a proffer of $123,622 made to Durham Public Schools.
Second.
622 or 602?
02.
02.
02.
Put 20 in there. So 02.
Okay. May I have the roll call vote, please?
Verified motion was made by Commissioner Trapp and
Seconded by Commissioner
Seconded.
Durham. Okay.
Durham.
Thank you.
Okay, to move Aura Z2300023 Aura Green Hill forward with a favorable recommendation. May I have the roll call vote?
Vice Chair Shigaris,
Yes.
Commissioner Cutright,
Yes.
Commissioner Durham,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner McIver,
Yes.
Commissioner Cease,
Yes.
Commissioner Trapp,
Yes.
Commissioner Woke.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries 8-0.
All right, next item on the agenda, old business. Any old business? Nope. Any new business?
I know it's late, but does the subcommittee just want to give a brief update?
Yes, the Rules of Procedure Subcommittee, consisting of myself, Commissioner Trapp, and Commissioner Cutright, met in December and had a good discussion and made numerous recommendations and forwarded them back through to city staff. And city staff has sent it through to the city and county attorneys for their feedback to make sure it's compliant with the interlocal agreement. And we're waiting to hear back from them, and then we'll hopefully be done. Any idea on that time frame, Alexander? Not that I hate to rush the
This is
attorney.
my fault for bringing it up.
Yes.
We'll keep pushing on it. We do have a new city attorney, so we just want to make sure that we're spending time with her because Dawn retired. But probably over the next month and a half, we'll get this done. Our goal would be by the next planning commission. We could have y'all could have a report and we could bring it back to y'all. So.
Okay, good. Beautiful. All right, that's it. We're adjourned. I hope everybody didn't get weather damage.
Thanks,
Vice
y'all.
Chair, I had my hand raised. Sorry. I will not be at the next meeting. I conveyed that earlier to the chair. So I just wanted to mention it again here. I'll be.
Okay. All right, thank you.